Welcome to the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. I'm your host, David Riddle. My guest this week, while he is a shooter, has a very diverse background. He writes on the side, does some other stuff, does a bunch of shooting, went to a bunch of shooting schools. So we're going to cover, this might be a long one or it could be a short one, who knows, but there's a lot of information we're going to try to get to during this episode. He used to be a Virginian, but he is now transplanted to South Carolina, where it seems like a lot of people are moving. So if you would, join me in welcoming to the show, Mr. Ryan Geho. How you doing, Ryan?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you. And I purposely didn't ask how to pronounce your last name. Did I pronounce it correctly?
You did not, but you were close. It's Geho. Just like how.
Oh, Geho.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been called Ghetto, Gecko, Geho. You name it.
What?
I just respond to it. I'm just used to it. So.
Okay. I guess people like to add letters to your last name. I mean, it's only 4 letters long.
Apparently so. I'm used to it. I hear words from my wife on a daily basis, so it's all good. So.
Well, at least it's not Geho.
I'm sure I would call it that too.
So. All right. So, Ryan, if you would take a brief moment and introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name's Ryan Geho. First of all, thanks for having me on this podcast. You've got a wide array of guests that are distinguished shooters, and I just feel honored just to be even mentioned in the same name and be here. So thank you so much for having me. So my background goes way back. I grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania. I got into shooting pretty quickly because I became a parole officer, and I said, hey, if I'm going to carry a gun professionally, I better damn well know how to use this thing in case if I ever need to use it. So went to the instruction there, and I was like, look, there has to be more to shooting than this, because that was basically, here's a 5-day class. Let's get you to qual. I was like, this isn't going to work. So I started exploring schools on my own, started going to different schools, paying out of my own pocket, spending my weekends, going to different classes all over the Eastern Coast. Then eventually I got a job with the CIA. While I was there, one of the things that I did, I was a part-time instructor that turned into a full-time job. And I basically got paid to teach people how to shoot. Got to go to shooting schools. It was great. It was like the best year and a half of my life. Went to a lot of schools, got to absorb a lot of knowledge. And then later on, I kind of transitioned to another job in the agency, kind of went to the dark side. And then after that, I transitioned to my last job, where I was a special agent with U.S. Department of State Diplomatic Security for about 21 and a half years. Once again, I got to go to a lot of different schools, still did some things on my own, still paid for training. And then when I went to our tactical team, which is called mobile security deployments, got afforded the opportunity to go to a lot more schools, got to go to Mid-South almost every year. That was kind of part of our workup. And then I just retired in December of 2024. And I currently own a security consulting business where I do executive protection for high net worth individuals, corporations, and I also do like physical security surveys and things of that nature. And I also teach firearms on the side. And I'm still shooting competitively, but I've been grounded for the last couple of months because I'm basically getting over a knee replacement right now. So I'm kind of working through that right now. So that's kind of a little bit about my background in a nutshell.
Well, we will revisit that knee thing, because I am there, and I am as recovered as I'm going to get, and I am not recovered.
Okay.
Not a surgical area. 24.
Okay. Full knee replacement?
Full knee replacement.
Okay.
But not a surgeon error. It was mine was work related, so it took workers' comp 5 weeks to get me into physical therapy. So I'm done. Yeah, I ended up getting medically retired because I have only 90-degree flexion in my knee.
Oh my God! They didn't do manipulation under anesthesia. That wasn't an option. Twice.
And he said twice is my limit. He said we'll do it twice. And the first time, he said it moved pretty well. He was able to break it free. He said it took some force, but he could break it free. But the anesthesiologist, the woman who did the block in my thigh, jacked that up.
Oh my
She
God.
jacked it up
Oh,
so bad that I ended up calling the hospital and having a conversation with the head of anesthesiology. And I was basically told, well, she's without, I don't think it was my situation. I think my situation was one of many,
mhm.
but that person wasn't coming. Like he was overhauling. He was new to the position and he was overhauling those people who were working there. And she was not one of the ones who was going to continue working there.
Oh my God. So unfortunate for
So
you, man.
yeah, I got jacked up. That I still the other night I felt pain in my thigh where she had jacked up my
It had to have been a nerve
injection.
issue. Yeah. She
It
obviously hit a
it
major nerve. Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean you're supposed to block the nerve, but I think not only that, but I think she also did something to I think when she so they they did you get
Hmm.
the block?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
They use ultrasound to
Hmm.
guide the needle because they go in deep. Well, I think what happened with me was that time when I had the initial surgery, I didn't feel anything. The guy went in there, did what he needed to do. Man, it was fantastic. Like when I came out of surgery, they were like, slow down. This isn't a race. Cause they were like,
Right.
they made me walk, they made me go up and down
Right.
stairs and do some stuff before I could go home. And I was like, did it all. And the nurse was like, whoa, slow down. This isn't a race. I'm like, I
Same
feel
here.
good.
I was walking with
you
my
know?
walker up here. They're like, no, you're supposed
Yeah.
to be on the ground.
Yeah. It's like, wow, I feel great. But that time, dude, that is the most pain I've been in as an adult in
Oh my
my
God.
life. Like I had to, like when I had the manipulation, they send you directly to physical therapy from, you literally leave the surgical center and go to physical therapy.
That got to be torture.
Dude, it was all I could do not to break down
Oh my
and
God.
in physical therapy. It was the hardest thing of my life that I've ever had to do. But we went back a second time. He said it was much harder to break it and that he had to go in and do some cleaning out. And then he sent me to Richmond to another specialist
Hmm.
a couple months later when we still couldn't get to do much. And the guy's like, look, I've looked at your x rays, I've looked over all your surgical notes. Surgically, there's nothing wrong with your knee. He said, this is just an unfortunate side effect.
So
And
what
I
is your
was like,
flexion right now? 90
90
degrees?
degrees.
God.
With pain at times, it feels like I have a torn meniscus.
That's
And it's
awful.
just like, and I have no meniscus, so it's
Right.
impossible.
I'm so
But yeah, I
sorry.
have got, it's just one of those things. It's like, and you don't know before, like I've done a lot of stuff medically
Hmm.
and I've treated people with knee replacements and stuff. But until you go through it, you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't realize that I should have been pushing to be in physical therapy the next day or the day after. So I was doing what they were telling me to do. And, I'd have like one or two home health visits a week.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm doing what they're supposed to be. I'm doing the stuff on my own. I'm doing all this other stuff. Yeah, it didn't go well for me. So now yeah, it's weird, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you almost have like a soft tissue block that is really impeding your knee from moving any further because obviously it's not a structural issue. So it's a soft
Correct.
tissue thing. Yeah. Man, that sucks, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I saw, you posted a video of you doing some deadlifts
Yeah.
already. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's
I'm at,
good.
I'm at 13 weeks right now. So at the point where, so a couple of weeks ago, my therapist had me running intervals again. And I was like, whoa,
Wow.
yeah, he was being very aggressive because he knows what I want to do and he knows I want to get back to high level. And he's like, "Look, we really don't have a playbook for what you want to do because we're just kind of going on feel." He's like, "There's some
Right.
general milestones, but he's like, for a knee replacement, most people just want to be able to walk again or play tennis." He's like, "You want to be able to like run intervals, cut, run, agility, run like I run a lot of 12-meter sprints for USPSA." He's like, there's really not a playbook. So he had me on the treadmill a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, time out, man. After that first session, I went home and I cold plunge every day. So I sat in my cold plunge for like 10 minutes. I was just hurting. So I was like, yeah, let's wait till about 16 weeks. So, and we kind of came up with a game plan, but it's moving, it's progressing slower than I thought it would, but it's moving along. I'll probably be able to shoot my first match, probably, I'm guessing, towards the end of March, beginning of April, but I still won't be 100%. I'll be probably 60% ish, because that's about the time frame I'll get back to moving, really working on my movement. So,
I just shot my first USPSA match in 3 years.
oh my God.
Yeah. So it's been quite the path. Now, what is your degree of flexion right now? I'm sure they check it like, do
So
they
he
check
just
it weekly or every visit?
Yeah, pretty much weekly. So he just checked it this morning, and I can get to 125 on my own. And if he pushes it,
Damn.
he can get it to like maybe 132, 133. But that's pretty painful. That's like where I'm like grabbing onto the table and like cussing him as he's doing it. So I,
Dude, that was me at 100
so,
with double pain meds
oh my,
and the physical therapist pushing and me moving, sliding away from her as much as I could, but she would use the wall behind me
that's the
and
worst.
push. Yeah, dude, it is.
That is
It
no
is bad.
joke.
That's awesome though that you can get to 125 on your own.
Yeah, about 125. I'm hoping when I leave, I'm at like 130 on my own. We'll see. He's like, some people get to 135. He said, I had somebody get to 140. And I'm like, that's probably not realistic
That's
for
a
as much.
woman.
And that's exactly what he said. He said, women usually get
Yeah.
better flexion and they swell less
Well,
usually. So,
yeah. Well, you got to look too. I mean, this is not a sexist comment. This is,
mhm,
this is just a physiological comment as someone who's been
mhm,
in the medical field for 30 years, and that is that the muscle density is different.
that's
The
true.
flexibility is automatically different. They are more flexible, just the way it is. So that's why as soon as you said 140, I'm like, oh, that's a woman.
Yep.
So
That
you
is
you
true.
know, most men aren't getting there. Like,
We'll never get there. Yeah.
no, I before knee surgery, my right knee was between 116 and 119, depending on the day.
Hmm.
So, and it was at that point, they say they typically don't like to replace knees unless you're 120 or below.
Right.
And I was right in that criteria. So I, I was hoping to get to 125,
Hmm.
130. If
That's a
I got
good
to
number.
130, I'd be ecstatic. Yeah, because that's normal. They say 125 to 135 is normal. Okay, if I can hit that middle number, 130,
Mhm.
I would be ecstatic. Well, I'm nowhere near that, but that's what my goal was. I'm like, no problem. I get back to work. I'll do everything I did before. This will be awesome. My knee will be great. And my knee is great. I know, like, my confidence level on my knee is not an issue because I know that thing is rock solid.
Mhm.
But, it's just that whole flexion thing. But that, man, I think you're way ahead. You're doing
Eh,
great.
I kind of struggled. So the nemesis for me has been swelling, and I'm still swelled to this day. I still deal with swelling. So that has been my nemesis, and I'm a sweller, and that knee has had so much trauma inflicted on it. This is my 10th surgery on that knee. So that knee's been through the ringer. So that knee is pretty pissed off. So, and that's what everybody keeps saying. They're like, look,
Yeah.
you had a lot of trauma on that knee. So that's kind of to be expected. But yeah, it's not been easy though. It's been a struggle. It's not been easy. This has been one of the more difficult surgeries I've had to overcome. But I just keep chipping away at it every week. But I'm finally getting to the point now where I'm starting to explore different things. Like yesterday, I did agility ladder drills. I haven't done that yet, and I came out of that pretty well. So that's kind of my next step to getting back to running or interval running. I don't want to run again. There's a reason why I have this. So, and I have to always be cognizant of that. This is your last ditch effort. Is this knee? So you need to take care of it and do what you're supposed to do. So now let me ask you this: would you think about having a revision just to get more mobility? No.
No, I think at this point, no, I'm not. When he said he only does two, I was like, I'm fine with that. I'm done. Like, in 1 year's time, I went to 135 physical therapy
Oh
appointments.
my God, that drains your pocketbook, man.
Well, it's all workers'
Oh,
comp. It
that's
was
right. It's workman's comp.
100% covered.
That's a lot of time and effort and just,
It was for 4 months I could not drive
God,
because because I was on pain medication going to physical therapy all the time. I couldn't drive. So I was at home for like 4 months afterward, not able to do much of, I mean, I did a lot of podcasts because I was sitting around not doing much else. I
no.
couldn't do anything else. And the way so I worked for Prince William County, which I'm sure
Mhm,
you're familiar with being from
mhm.
Northern Virginia, fire and rescue. So their basically policy is that if you are on no duty, you do nothing. Like you don't work, you don't. I kept telling them, I'm like, I had been assigned to our academy for 2 years training paramedic students. I was like, I can do that
Do
stuff from
that,
home.
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? But their policy is no duty, no duty.
Mhm.
That's it. So I didn't, I had nothing else to do but physical therapy, work on my knee. Now they gave me one of the things they did. Here's how messed up everything was when they delivered. So they delivered this bicycle thing. I was like, what the hell is this? And he brings it in and he sets it up and they've got like this big, like 13-inch tablet on it. And the guy looks at me and goes, you already had your surgery? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, no, these are supposed to be delivered like 5 days before you have
Oh,
surgery so you can get everything set up, be logged in, be ready to go. Oh my God. The next day I had the first session on that bike and it's an automatic system where it turns the pedals for you. It was a struggle to get my feet in the pedals because
right. That was a struggle for me for a while. Yeah.
yeah, it had probably been about 3 or 4 days. And then, I know what it was. No, no, no. Okay. So I had my surgery Tuesday. For 60 hours. I had uncontrolled pain because workers' comp had not approved my pain medication.
Oh my God.
So
So
I had no pain medication at home. And when the nerve block wore off, I was fried. I was like,
I would have went to the
ah.
ER.
My wife went through and she found some old medicine from a year earlier when I had a meniscus repair.
Mhm.
And she's like, here's this. I'm like, I'm
I'll take
taking
it.
two,
Yeah.
So didn't touch it because it was extended release. So it didn't do squat.
Oh my
So
God.
I'm like in pain. That Thursday evening, I finally got my first dose of pain medication
Oh my
and
Lord.
I was on the bike and that thing started turning. So the pain medication hadn't really kicked in and the wheels started turning and there's an emergency stop button. So I hit the emergency stop button and it jerked my leg back.
Oh, that's the worst.
I never got on that bike again. Like
That's the
not
worst.
getting on that bike again. Yeah, I was like traumatized, literally traumatized. I was like, I'm not getting on that bike. That pain was, as someone who's trained paramedics and gone over the pain scale of 0 to 10, I don't use 1 to 10 because there's zero. Um, I never knew, and someone who's had 2 ankle reconstructive surgeries. So I've had both ankles and both knees operated on, all from like sports or
Mhm.
work or whatever. And, you know, I one time had pain that I had rated a 10 where I played football while I was in the Marine Corps 60 days after having an ankle reconstruction. And I dove for a ball and all of a sudden I had so much pain. I was blinded. I couldn't see. So I
Mm.
was on all fours on the grass. My mouth was open and it was like watering like a fire hose. It
That's
wasn't vomit. It was just saliva coming out of my mouth. So I was like, okay, that's a 10. That's the top of the scale. I had pain that went over top of that. So now
mm,
after that, when I talk to paramedics, I'm like, there's no such thing as a 10 scale unless you equate it to a Richter scale where a 9.7 is 10 times greater than a 9.6, which is
true.
10 times greater than a 9.5. I said, because I had pain that was far greater during this whole recovery
That's
process
insane.
than that was. Yeah.
How the hell
I
did they
have,
not approve your pain medication before your surgery?
dude, that entire thing, excuse my French, was an entire shit show.
That's
from a
awful.
workers' comp standpoint. Yes.
That is awful. Yeah, nobody
And
should
I'm
be.
still dealing with those people.
Because once my block wore off, that's when I was look, this is a painful surgery. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I've seen them do this surgery online and it is not gentle. It's basically like being in a horrible car accident and they're literally the trauma they inflict to your knee is horrific. So they're sawing bones off and
Yes.
pounding pieces in. So it's it's a gross motor skill surgery, but it's a very trauma and it's a heavy trauma inflicted surgery. If
The nice thing about my surgery and the surgeon who I had to fight to go to this surgeon, who had treated me for my meniscus repair. He fixed that. But then they didn't want me to go see him for my knee replacement. I'm like, this makes no sense. And it's so weird how I know we're way off course,
That's
but
okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But the way our county worked is they have their own, like, it's not self-certified, they're self-pay workers comp. So they hire a company to manage their workers comp. They don't they don't like just have a workers comp company do it. So the workers comp company is telling me, yeah, he's on our list. My county's like, no, he's not. We removed him. So they contacted the workers comp company and said, no, he's not allowed to go see them.
Wow.
So it was all kind of craziness. So anyway, long story short, he actually uses lasers and
Mhm.
all kinds of high tech equipment where you have to go to a private hospital for.
Right.
And they actually took a CT of my knee
Right.
and x-rays. They create a 3D model. So there's no chiseling and pounding and all of that. But it's still very traumatic, obviously, because you're removing
Right.
they still, like, with those models, the machinery actually shaves off the least amount of bone necessary to
Right.
attach the parts. I still have my kneecap and
Yeah,
all of
I do
that.
too. Yeah,
Okay.
you had the striker surgery. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So,
basically, the computer does it ahead of time. So
yep.
they take the CT scan and the computer actually they image it out and it does it ahead of time. And then when they go in the OR, actually, the dirty little secret is the rep actually does the surgery. So my wife is she's a nurse navigator for joint replacement at a local hospital here. So she was the one that basically
Hmm.
she kind of walked me through the process, and I kind of had some VIP treatment a little bit. So due to my great wife. So, but yeah, basically the rep does the surgery. So he basically walks through it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah,
All right. Well, it was nice when I went to that other doctor in Richmond that they referred me to for a second opinion. He was like, yeah, he's like, typically he like when people come see me and I look at their knee and their, x-rays and everything else, he's like, I know where the problem is. He goes, with your knee, he's like, if I were to open your knee up, it's an exploratory procedure. Cause like, I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't see anything. There's nothing structurally that's causing your issue. So then we were like, okay, it is all just soft tissue issue here. And I mean, he had me, I think, 3 times tested to make sure I didn't have an infection going on, or because of he wanted to make sure I wasn't reacting to the metals or anything inside, and everything of that came back. So the only thing we can go back to is it took 5 weeks to get into physical therapy, and we were never able to reverse that, no
that's
matter
a
what
long
we did.
time. That is a very long time not to bend it. Yeah,
Everybody I say that to, they're like, their eyes get huge. I've said that to I don't know how many nurses, and their eyes get huge. They're like, what?
that's a
I'm
very
like,
long.
yeah. They're like, that's incompetence. That's
It
literally what everybody says. That's
is.
incompetence.
Yes, it is.
And so,
But
and
at
I'm
the
still
end of the
dealing
day,
with the workers' comp. So
but
I
at the
may
end of
end
the
up,
day, it's your body, and they screwed your body up, and now you have to live with it. Unfortunately, that's the sucky part. So
it
yes,
is.
yes.
So I think I may actually need to consult with somebody. I have a lawyer for workers' comp, but I may need to consult with somebody else dealing with incompetence. So, but whole other story there. All right. So you said you grew up in Southwest PA. I feel like people, when they say they grow up in PA, I always think Western. So, like everything west of Philadelphia, when, is west uh, and rural,
Mhm.
Obviously, you've got Pittsburgh and you've got some other
Mhm.
towns and stuff in there. And I feel like everybody is a deer hunter from PA.
They are
Or,
for me. Yeah. So,
yeah. And
yeah.
like I knew a guy when I was at 3rd Recon Battalion, we were, roommates, and he was from, and they did a bunch of coon hunting, and
Mhm.
he did mink stuff, all kinds of stuff. So I feel like people from PA do a lot of outdoor hunting in general. So that's what your background is?
I was a fisherman growing up.
Hmm.
I didn't hunt. My father was never a hunter, so I didn't hunt. I had friends who hunted. I had a ton of friends who hunted, but I just never had anybody to basically show me how to do it. So, I mean, I wasn't, it's not that I didn't want to do it. My family wasn't into it. So I grew up a fisherman, and I actually grew up way in southwestern Pennsylvania. I grew up right on the West Virginia border, a little town called Uniontown. It's about 50 miles south of Pittsburgh. So it's about 30 miles north of the West Virginia border in a county called Fayette County. Yeah, so I always wanted to learn how to hunt, but I just never did it as a child. So, and I didn't grow up in a gun culture either. I had BB guns, slingshots, that kind of stuff, but just didn't have a gun in my house growing up until later
Hmm.
on. Yep.
Okay. You said you were a parole officer.
Hmm.
Okay. So, well, first off, before I go there, when did you find the shooting sports? Let me get that first.
I did not find the shooting sports until the last 5 or 6 years. So I knew
Okay.
about them, but I didn't start competing until like around, I think it was around COVID actually. I think it was the year of COVID, which is
So
really strange.
2020.
Yeah. I had a lot of time. So
Okay.
we'll come back to that later. But yeah, it was like 2020 is when I got into the shooting sports. But I knew they existed. I mean, I knew who Rob Latham was. I knew who Jerry Barnhart was way back from the day. I knew who all these people were. I used to watch. What is the shooting show? What is the name of the
Was it
individual who's
Top
just
Shot?
up? No,
Oh,
it's an old shooting show. It was like it's a half hour that used to come on. I used to watch that all the time. I think I don't even know what channel it came on. The individual who narrated it just passed away about a year or two ago.
I don't know.
I can't remember the guy's name, but anyways, I used to watch that show. So right before I knew I was going to get into law enforcement. So I went out and bought my first handgun. I think it was like a Ruger P85 or something like that. I mean, basically shot some bottles at a local range, if you want to even call it a range. It was more like an ash dump with just throwing bottles out there. So that's where that was my first experience to shooting. I mean, I had a 22 rifle before that. I would just plank and things like that, but I was never exposed to any formal training. And like I said, my family wasn't into a gun culture. I was the first one that wanted to have a gun and own a gun. And then that just kind of transitioned all through my career, and it kind of fell into place for me. So
Okay, that's where I was trying to decipher what was going on there. So did you all right, when you knew you were going to get into law enforcement, you buy a P85.
mhm.
What made you decide to become a parole officer?
So I went to college. I majored in administration of justice. So I knew I was. So I wanted. Let's back up real quick. I wanted to go in the military right out of high school. I wanted to get a ranger contract, and my father was an officer in the military. And he's like, "Look, just do me a favor. Go to college. I'll pay for like your first semester. If you like it, then whatever." He's like, "But if you don't like it, then go down to the recruiter. I'll go down to the recruiter with you. You can do what you want." So I said, "Okay, I'll give college a shot." So I go to college. I realized you could drink beer, chase girls, and just hang out. And I was like, this is easy, man. Nobody's telling me what to do. Nobody's on my ass. I'm like, this is easy. I've always been an anti authority type figure. I never responded to anybody telling me what to do. Like through high school, I didn't give a shit about anything because I would go to class, but it just showed up. I didn't care about. I'm like, please tell me how this is going to translate in the real world for me. Tell me how this geometry class is going to make me money when I'm 23 years old. I mean, maybe I could see the big picture back then, but I probably had ADHD as a child. But I was never into school. And then I went to college. I was like, this is easy. This is like, what's not to like about this? I was like, oh, let's put this military thing off for a while. So I basically majored in administration of justice, then kind of went in that angle where I was like, okay, I think I'm going to try to eventually transition into federal law enforcement, maybe the FBI or something like that. And that's kind of the path I
Hmm.
went. So
Okay.
yeah.
That makes sense. So at what point did you make that transition then from parole officer or whatever you were at the time to federal law enforcement?
So I was a parole officer for about 3.5 hours where I grew up in Fayette County, and honestly, it was probably the best job that I could have ever had right out of college because I learned to deal with straight up felons right from the get go. So I knew like everybody had a story. I mean, everybody had an angle. Everybody was always innocent. They were always innocent. They were always set up, right? So I knew how to deal with people. And I was dealing with murderers, rapists, people that committed grand larceny. Like I was dealing with these people every day. So I knew how that job
Wow.
gave me the skills on how to handle dangerous people and how to basically figure out their angle and how to deal with them. That is the biggest takeaway from that job. It set me up for later in life whether I was overseas or on gang task force domestically or whatever, that job really set me up. And then that's when I realized I was like, look, I was at that time I was really big into martial arts. So I was real hard and heavy into martial arts. I would travel down to Pittsburgh like 2, 3 nights a week. I was into Jeet Kune Do, Filipino martial arts. I was into Muay Thai kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I would just take everything and absorb it. And at that time, I was like, look, if I'm going to carry a gun professionally, I better know how to use this damn thing because the training that they give us is just awful. It's basically 5 days. Okay, here's this I don't know, 27 target or whatever it is. Just shoot holes in the center of it and get to qualify in 5 days and we'll be done. And I was like, this is not, there's got to be more to this shooting thing than what they're telling us right here. So that's when I started going out. And these were the days right before the internet was a big thing. So you kind of had to call people and everything was word of mouth. And I just started going to schools like John Farnham. I don't know if you're familiar with him. There was a training facility in West Virginia called Storm Mountain Training Center. I took a couple classes there. I traveled down to a facility in North Carolina called Trigger Time Inc. It was run by a guy by the name of Tom Bullins. I think at one point in time he was nationally ranked USPSA shooter. I think he may have won USPSA one year actually. But I went to him a couple times and just started seeking training, and it just started getting better. And I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. And then it kind of became a hobby, and then just started shooting all the time.
When you joined the federal law enforcement service,
Mhm.
was it were you able to get into what you wanted to get into initially, or did you just have to get in and then work your way to where you wanted to be?
So I first joined the CIA as a police officer. So they have a police force that basically they have jurisdiction on their compound and just off their compound. So I did that initially, and it just turned out that I was in the right place at the right time. So I came on with them, and I knew that they had auxiliary positions. Like you could become a part-time defensive tactics instructor, you could become a part-time firearms instructor, and they also had a cadre. Back then, they weren't called GRS; they were called POC, Protective Operations Cadre. That basically they would take you TDY if you went through the training, and then you would go overseas and protect case officers and things like that. So they had all these things, and that's what I eventually wanted to get into. But 9/11 happens, and all of a sudden, we had a need for more instructors, and we actually lost some of our instructors to the air marshals because at that time the air marshals was hiring everybody and their mother. So I
Yeah.
was already a part-time instructor, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to do this full time?" And I'm like, "Sure." Do I want to be a police officer or go to the range and be on the range full time? I'm like, that's a no brainer. So I taught at two of our facilities in Virginia, one in Northern Virginia and one in Southeastern Virginia. I would kind of TDY back and forth. And that's when I really got my first exposure to really, really formalized pistol training. I got the opportunity to go to a lot of good schools. I got the opportunity to attend Ron Avery's, I think it was a 5 day handgun instructor class. Got to go to Jerry Barnhart. I went to all the H&K schools. What else did I go? Went to the Glock instructor and armorer's course. Got to go to a couple schools at Blackwater. So at the time, actually, a funny story is our facility, the agency's facility in southeastern Virginia. I'm not going to say where it's at, but everybody knows where it's at. It's the worst kept secret in the world. When Blackwater was first built, they actually came up to our facility and they looked at how our bunkhouse was right next to our range, and they actually patterned that off of Blackwater, and they built Blackwater to look like our facility. It's actually a story a lot of people don't know about. But we had so back then we were the one agency that actually kept Blackwater afloat before they basically came before they inked the deal with the State Department WIPS contract. They were struggling back then. The CIA was one of the first agencies that actually basically bolstered them financially. So, and we kind of that relationship went on for years. So we would always go to training down there, and they would come up to us, and vice versa. But I would basically go to a school for a week, come back, take what I learned, update lesson plans, and then teach whoever were the customers for the next couple of weeks. Then go to another school. It was the greatest year and a half of my life. And when I wasn't teaching, I was always shooting. So that's when I really developed my skills. I was always shooting. And there's nothing better than shooting free government ammo.
No, absolutely right. When you have to stop doing that, that's when you realize how expensive it really is.
That's me now. Yes.
Yeah.
I have Super Val on speed dial now. So,
Oh no. Now, what would make you want to leave that position?
so it's just a natural progression. I wanted to go do things overseas, and at the time, I was still doing other things at that time that I really can't discuss. But I just had that. I always wanted to get things out of my system and go overseas and serve my country and do whatever I had to do. And I just had to get those things out of my system. So, and then I eventually transitioned to the directorate of operations, which it was called, but I don't even know what the name of it is now. I was in a specialized unit in the counterterrorism center, and I wanted to go overseas to do like counterterrorism operations. And I did that for
Your job.
yeah, I did that for about a year. And so this is a funny story. So at the time, I had applied for State Department Diplomatic Security Service, and I never really thought anything about it. And then they call me. I was on the beach one day with my wife. We're on vacation. I think I was at the Outer Banks, and they called and they're like, "Hey, this is State Department Diplomatic Security. Would you like to take the job?" And I was like, "Nah." I was like, they said you could be on a registry for 18 months. And I said, "Look, just put me back on your registry. I'm just not interested right now." At that time, I thought I was going to spend my career with the agency. So they called me back like another 4 months later, and I was like, "Nah, just put me back on the registry." And then fast forward about a year later, it was like, I think it was like almost the 18th month where I was getting ready to expire from the registry. It just, the stars and the moons aligned for me. So it was my 30th birthday. I just turned 30. And I went to my boss and I walked into his office. My boss was a hard charger. He was from a former JSOC unit. And I go to him and I'm like, "Hey, when am I getting promoted?" And his exact words, he's like, "How the hell would I know when you're getting promoted?" He actually said something different. I won't repeat it on your podcast. So I was like, "Okay, Roger that." So I go back to my desk and my phone rings and they're like, "It's the State Department, last and final offer." I was like, "Screw it, I'll take it." And I'd actually been talking. So at the time, there was a DS agent who was detailed to the agency, and he was like, "Hey, look, I think your name's going to be recycled." He made some calls, and he told me how he spent most of his career overseas, and it was a good job, and how you'll learn all these skills. So I thought about it with my wife, and at the time I was a GS-8 living in Washington D.C., Northern Virginia.
Ooh.
I'm a short story. We were actually on vacation one year. It was like about a month or two before this. We stopped. I think we're at the Outer Banks, and we came home. And we stopped at a McDonald's, probably somewhere south of Fredericksburg. And after I filled up my tank of gas, I think I looked at my wife and I was like, "Yeah, I think we have about $3.89 left for the week to spend." I mean, we were living paycheck to paycheck. So, they offered me a raise. I was like, "Okay, I'll take it." So that's history. So I basically took the job, and I was there for almost 22 years. I just retired
Okay.
in December of 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good point right here to pause because I got so distracted with the whole knee conversation
Yeah.
that we need to go back because I need to ask you a few
Sure.
opening podcast questions. What is your favorite movie?
So that's probably a two-tiered answer. So recently, I would say anything in the John Wick series. And look, I love Keanu Reeves. Who doesn't love Keanu Reeves? But probably more so because of the Terran tactical guns. I've been with Terran since 2012. I've been dealing with him since 2012 before people even know, they didn't even know who he was back then. So once he introduced those guns, I think it was the John Wick 2 series, that just kind of did it for me. Um, and Terran's always people. I know people knock them online or whatever, but they've always every time I call and I need something, they always take care of me. They're an awesome company. But probably going back to my childhood, I would say probably Roadhouse because
Oh, wow.
I grew up in a bar just like that. So yeah, there
We're
was.
talking Patrick Swayze Roadhouse.
I grew up in a bar just like that, man. There was bar brawls every weekend, man. There was always chairs flying, tables flying, constantly. It was
Oh my
that was my childhood.
God.
I was a horrible kid. Matter of fact, remember the what was that movie called? You ever see that movie called The Bronx Tale?
I did not see that movie.
No. So there's in that movie, there's a bunch of bikers that come into this mafia bar, and the owner, he's the head of the mafia, like in that part of the Bronx. And he's like, look, give them a beer and then they'll be gone. So they come in there, they drink a beer, and then they start throwing beer bottles. He's like, look, I told you, have one beer and leave. So he walks up to the door and he locks the door. He said, now you just can't leave. And they just basically a brawl ensued and they just beat the crap out of all these bikers. That happened at our bar one night. There was a bunch of pagans that came in, and the owner we were friends with, he's like, look, you have one beer and you leave. And they started carrying off, and my friends and I were all big guys, and I was friends with a lot of college football players. And he basically went up to the door. He locked the door. He's like, "Now you just can't leave." And we took him outside and just beat the shit out of him. We ended up throwing him in the dumpsters out back. So
I've not seen the movie, but I have seen that scene before.
yes,
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
yes, yeah, I lived that.
And he was
scene.
like dressed all nice
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My friend was a big Italian guy. He's like, "Now you just can't leave," and he just locked the door. And they just the look on their face was just like you could hear a record just the record stopped in the bar. So just screeched.
Well, yeah, they work on intimidation. And when that doesn't work,
Didn't work for him so well that night. So,
yeah. Okay. Now, and we'll get into the other stuff later, but you write and you do some stuff. So I had to give you this question. What's your favorite book? Because you had to have read a book or two or thousand.
yeah. I would say the first Vince Flynn book, Term Limits. So that's kind of where that genre
Oh.
started. Yeah. And my writing style is very raw, and I kind of like it. I don't know if you read any of my stuff on Substack, but my
Mm-hmm.
style is very raw. It's very violent. It's very in your face. I would say that book kind of did it for me. That was kind of what started me on that path of that genre. And then obviously he obviously passed away, which was unfortunate. But there's other people like Jack Carr, Mark Greaney in that genre that kind of carried it forward. Now there's a lot of authors in that genre now, but I would say that's probably my favorite book. I read that.
Interesting.
I read that book on a deployment overseas, and I think I read it like two more times after that. We passed that book around during that deployment. People were like, "Oh my God, you got to read this." I always liked it because it was plausible. It was somewhat,
Mm.
yes,
I was a huge Vince Flynn fan. I think I read 5 or 6 of his books, and then he passed. And then and right in the middle of a book. So, they had another author come in that they contracted with to
right.
complete, and he's still writing Vince Flynn's books, but I
Mhm.
have not picked up a Vince Flynn book
It's
since
not the
then.
same, and
It's
unfortunately,
not.
there's a new writer that was just contracted, and I can't. His name escapes me, and I haven't read any of his stuff. But I believe it was Kyle Mills was first contracted, and I tried to read his books, and I couldn't do it. I was like, this is not even anywhere in the same
I
same
know.
canon. It's just not.
Vince Flynn is like he was just gifted. The
Yes.
ability to write the way he wrote was just wow. And I mean, I was on his newsletter. I would look at,
Um,
his social media, all of it. And then when he got cancer and died, I was like,
Horrible, just a horrible death.
yeah, it was terrible.
I actually, I'm friends with Mark Greaney. and I actually helped him with one of his books. It's called the Armored series. It was called the Sentinel, and it was about a fictitious DS agent. And I kind of helped him with some of the technical stuff in that book, as far as the DS centric stuff, State Department centric stuff. I mean, he always said, "Hey, thank you so much for helping me out." And I'm like, "Look, I just gave you a little bit of information. You're the one who wrote the book. I just gave you a little bit of information that you needed." But he's a phenomenal guy, and so yeah, I think he just had a new book that came out last week.
I may
I don't
have
know
to
if you
look
read
him
any
up.
stuff.
Have
So,
you read any of David Morrell's stuff? He's the guy who wrote First Blood.
First Blood. I read a book from him in Iraq, and I can't remember the name of it. It was about a former Delta operator. I can't think of the name. The name escapes me. It was a paperback that I had.
Way back in the 80s, I read Brotherhood of the Rose. And it was about two orphans who grew up. And I want to say they ended up being part of Mossad. I don't remember. It's been a long time, but there were 3 books in the series, and I ended up reading them all from him, and they were freaking amazing. I'm trying to think. Chris and Saul, yeah.
I can't remember the name of the book.
Raised by a Mysterious CIA agent. That's what it was. But so Brotherhood of the Rose is the first one. Then it's Fraternity of the Stone, and then League of Night and Fog. Man, what an amazing freaking series of books.
I'll have to check it out.
That was a really, really good one.
The author that I felt like did a really good job initially was Jack Carr, his first book, because it was very raw, very dark. I can't, the name escapes me because I read so many books. It's the first book in his series.
Yeah, I'll just look it up real quick
It's about
here.
revenge. He basically had a list of people that he wanted to go down and basically terminate. And it was very raw, very dark. And that's kind of the way I write.
I wonder if that was the terminal list.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the terminal list. There we go.
That is a phenomenal book. He took a break.
A lot of good books.
He took a break from his main character. He just wrote a book about Vietnam, Mac V. Sog. I just started reading that recently because I've been doing more writing than reading recently. And then I'm going to read Mark Greaney's book, and then I think Jack Carr has another book coming out. I want to say this summer, late spring, summer. It's basically his modern day interpretation of Have Gun Will Travel. So it's supposed to be pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. Man, when I was a teenager, a young teenager, I was all into the Mac Bolan series. Not Terminator. Executioner. That's what it is.
Okay. Okay.
And Mac Bolan. So he was a Vietnam veteran who ended up running into the mob somewhere and having a bad experience. So then his whole life revolved around killing mobsters. And he just book after book after book after book, he is just annihilating these people. I'm like, this is the greatest series of books. I was like 13, 14 years old. I'm like, this is fantastic. This is my hero. I want to grow up to be like him. So it was like Batman, but darker.
It's crazy.
So it's pretty wild. And then recently I was like, I used to be part of this, I don't know, book email thing. And one time they send you an email every day with like books that are 99 cents or free or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one day it was like the first 3 books of The Executioner on Amazon for free. And I was like, oh, download, read them all in like a day. I was like, all right, this is good stuff.
So many good books out there.
Oh, so many.
Not enough time in the day to read. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that, kids and adults nowadays don't read as much.
They don't. So they listen to audiobooks.
They don't.
They even do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah, for sure.
All right. This should be an interesting answer. So back originally, the first two questions are part of the original list I had created. Then I'm going to throw in a couple here that are from the newer list.
Okay,
And I wanted to throw this one in because I think based on your background, your experiences, your reading and writing and all of that, if you could have dinner with anyone from history, who would it be?
that's easy. George Washington. That is
Oh,
so.
I love it.
He's my hero, man. He is. There is a reason why he is the father, the undisputed father of our country. And if you just allow me a second to
Yes,
elaborate,
please.
there were seminal moments in his life that basically set him on the trajectory to doing the things for our country that he did. The first one was when he was 21, when he basically went on the diplomatic mission from, I think at the time it was Lieutenant Governor Dinwiddie, went on a diplomatic mission to Fort LaBeouf, which is currently in Pennsylvania today, to basically tell the French to leave the Ohio Valley. And the French, basically said, yeah, screw off, see you later. And on his way back, he falls into the Allegheny River, which was basically all icebergs at that point in time. He narrowly gets pulled out of the river by Christopher Gist. He was supposed to be dead back then at 21. Gets pulled out. That story kind of builds his legend as he goes later on through his life. Then fast forward 2 years during the French and Indian War, the Battle of Monongahela. He was the aide de camp to General Braddock. I think he was a lieutenant colonel. He had two horses shot out from underneath of him, four cannonball shots basically through his jacket, and he was completely untouched. There was actually a story 15 years later when he met a former, like, I think it was an Indian chief that was at that battle, and said that he actually took 13 shots at Washington during that battle. And it was almost like he was protected by this just like outer being. And basically Washington writes about this all through his career. It's called Define Providence. And he really, like, if you read anything that George Washington has written all through his career, he basically makes that point on and on and on. And then let's fast forward to when he crosses the Delaware during the Revolutionary War. That should have never happened. They were 3 to 4 hours behind the timeline. He basically got his troops that night to cross the Delaware. They take Trenton. A lot of people don't know this too. James Monroe and Alexander Hamilton were involved in that battle, and James Monroe was actually wounded during that battle. But that's another thing. They get the Hessians to basically throw up the white flag that night. They get them to surrender. That basically saves the war cause at that point in time. And then let's fast forward to the Newburgh Address, where our army at the time was about ready to basically go full mutiny because they owed back pay from Congress. And he basically stands up to the podium, and I'm just paraphrasing what he said. I can't remember the exact words, but he said, not only have I grown gray in the service to our country, but now he basically picks up his spectacles, and now I've gone blind as well. And there wasn't a dry eye in the room. And basically everybody dropped the mutiny at that point in time. And that kind of set him, I believe those 4 moments kind of set him on the trajectory to doing the things that he needed to do to build our great country at that point in time. And there was no other person that could have done that except for him. And he was made fun of and ridiculed back in those days by John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, because he wasn't formally educated. But there's people in the history that just have that it factor. And there was nobody else that had that it factor.
I mean, look, James Madison wanted him to be the president so bad he lied to him to get him to Philadelphia.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and I love James Madison. His house is only 40 minutes from me. So I've been down there. So there are certain key people, but yeah, I mean, he didn't want the job. He didn't want to be there a second term either.
No, he said, "I'm not going to be
didn't
a king."
Want any of it.
I would actually, my favorite historical place in the country is Mount Vernon. I would love to actually go there on our 250th, just to be there on that day, just to look over the Potomac River. I love being on that back porch at Mount Vernon. So that is like my favorite place in the world. So, and when you go there, we had this discussion earlier before we were online, but that is what Virginia is about. And people have lost sight of that. And I feel like Virginia is gone now, and people just it should come back to that. And that's what Virginia was built upon. So
100%.
Yes.
Yep. home of the presidents. I'm glad you took a moment to explain. That was very good. I'm glad I kept that. I'm glad I added that question. All right, little easier one, or I'll little. I won't say easier, more personal. What's one food you'll never grow tired of?
Oh, probably hamburger, smash burger. Love a good smash
Really?
burger. Yeah, I'm a health food nut, but when I go out to eat, I like to just completely just slum it up, man. I cheat like twice a week, and when I cheat, I cheat. Just I have to do it for my mental well being because my wife keeps me on a regimen. My wife, she's healthier than I am, and when I go out, I'm like, look, I want a cheat meal. I want something. I want fries, smash burger, wings, something like that. I never get tired of a good smash burger, man. So
Why smash burger over a regular burger?
either or, it doesn't really matter. Either or,
Okay.
yeah. I'm not.
I'm actually not a fan of a smash burger.
No,
That's why and it's only because I don't like my burgers well done.
I don't either. I like them like medium rare, medium. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a medium. And I always say I like everything medium because if you undercook it, medium rare, I can eat it. And if you do a medium well, I can eat it. So the medium's a good middle.
I just keep
So
like eating healthy all week and taking care of myself. It just I got to go out for my mental well being and have that cheat meal just to reset my psyche. So
there you go. All right. The last one I have specifically for you, and this is what triggered me to go, oh, we need to pause. You said you've, traveled. Of all the places you've been in your life, which was your favorite?
oh, that's kind of a loaded question. I'm going to give you an answer, and you're going to think that I'm absolutely crazy, but I would say Iraq.
Oh, yeah, I would not have guessed that, but please
No,
explain.
I had a blast over there. Honestly, like I was there in 2004, and those were the days of the Wild Wild West. And I felt like I guess the reason why I was able to actually do our job in 2004. I mean, obviously, I mean the risk factor was there because that's when Iraq. I would say '04 to '06 were the days where it was really bad. And it really started getting bad in like the fall of '04 when I was there. But I felt like that was when I was at the height of my profession of actually doing my job. So that's why I would say that. But the nicest place, I mean, I've been to a lot of nice places. I've been to Thailand. I mean, I've been everywhere. I can't even name them. So I've probably been to like 40 or 50 different countries. So, but probably that experience of just going there and being in the middle of that is something that I'll always remember. And that's why I joined the government to go do those type of things that other people don't have the opportunity to do. So,
Okay,
yep.
interesting. All right. Now, as a side note, when you said you first became a police officer for CIA, when you first joined, was there any conversation or was there any training based around the shootings that had occurred there in '93?
So everything we had done at that point in time was because of those shootings, actually. So basically, that's why all of our training was so modernized, was because of the Miriam Al-Qazi shooting at the main gate of CIA headquarters. So all the equipment we had was updated. We had MP5s, we had M4s already, we had Glock 17s. All of our, honestly, the training that I got at the agency was probably the best training that I ever got in the federal government. Our training
Mm,
staff was light years ahead of everybody else. Like, so they already developed a relationship with Ron Avery at the time, who was kind of like on top of his game. And
right.
they took everything that he taught and basically developed that into lesson plans and basically disseminated down to the lowest level. So we were already ahead of like stance, grip, all the fundamentals of marksmanship. We were probably 20 years ahead of our time. And a lot of our instructors had a competitive shooting background that also translated, which back then people would make fun of competitive shooting. Well, people still do make fun of competitive shooting until they actually go out and shoot a match and get humbled for the first time. But they actually,
Right.
I always say you could take a great law enforcement shooter and you put him in a match and he'll get his lunch eaten and basically his lunch money stolen by a good C class shooter.
Oh, wow.
Yep. say that I stand by that statement. So,
And
so
that's just due to the lack of training, basically.
yep,
Okay.
yep. You could take the best law enforcement shooter at your agency and you put him in a match, and he'll probably get destroyed by a good C class shooter. So, or maybe a bottom B class shooter, probably a C class shooter, I would say. I
Wow.
stand by that. Yeah.
You mentioned, now you've said Ron Avery, you've mentioned Jerry Barnhart.
Hmm.
You've mentioned a lot of different names, a lot of different places that you've taken a class. What do you think is the one that resonated the most with you?
I would say it was probably Ron Avery. He was a very tough individual. He basically, the first day in his class, he threw a binder at you and he said, "Know this." He's like, "I can ask you at any time to teach anything out of this book." And he honestly, he meant that. So later that afternoon, we're in the classroom, we're getting ready to go back to the range, and he picked this guy in the class. He said, "Come up and teach fundamentals of marksmanship." So this guy comes up to the podium. Now, mind you, it's the first day of the class. The guy gets behind the podium and he's just stammering through it. And Ron's sitting in the back of the class. He's like, he's just sitting there doing this the whole time. And he's like, nah, nah, nah. And I was like, this guy's nuts. And then finally, he said, "Sit the F down. You have no effing idea what you're talking about. Sit." I thought this dude was going to cry, man. And
Oh,
he's like,
wow.
"You're all effed up, blah, blah, blah." Could you imagine doing that nowadays? Like, wouldn't fly today. But he's like, "You're all effed up." And that's when we were like, all right, this guy means business. So that night, we're all like, we're going to chow and we're literally studying through this binder till like midnight. Like, we're all like, and I was like, but honestly, he made you learn it. And his qualification to get his instructor cert was challenging. That was the most challenging school that I went through at that point in time. But his techniques, he had everything broken down to a science. Basically, he studied human kinesiology and he had all these terms and he had all these, basically, like, he broke things down to layman's terms that you could understand. And that really resonated with me. And I still use a lot of those techniques to this day. Now, things have evolved, right? Shooting always evolves. And you go to different instructors and you're like, okay, you pick that one thing up from this guy, or you pick something up from this guy. But I still use a lot of his techniques to this day. And I still think they're pretty relevant to this day. And he's another one, God rest his soul. He passed several years ago. And yeah, he definitely made an impression on me. So,
Okay. I always say the best instructor is the one who can maintain your attention the longest,
yes,
because that's the individual who's going to be able to get the most attention. I mean, the most information to you.
absolutely. Jerry Barnhart, great shooter, phenomenal shooter, probably one of the best action shooters of our time. Not a very good instructor, not a great instructor.
Not
Very
able to relay that information, huh?
can't relay the information. And then a lot of times we'd be like, "Hey Jerry, do you have this written down anywhere?" "No, it's all in my brain." "Well, Jerry, like, we're not asking you if it's your brain. We just need it for like a reference." "No, it's all." He wouldn't. He just wouldn't want. He didn't want to write it down because he didn't want anybody taking his information and doing anything with it. So, but
Oh, wow.
great instructor, phenomenal to go to his class, but if you didn't get it, you didn't get it. And he just kept moving on. So
Hmm.
there was a lot of people that
Okay.
struggle with that because they're just not good shooters. And he didn't really care. He just kept moving on. So, yeah.
Hmm.
And that's
Now,
the,
have you?
go ahead. No, go ahead.
There are a lot of schools out there that don't necessarily have the highest level shooters,
Hmm.
but they still give good information. Were you able to go to any of those where somebody at like an off-brand school was like gave you a little bit of information that kind of helped the light bulb come on?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the first person that really helped me was John Farnham. I was not a good shooter when I first started shooting. I had a tendency to jerk the crap out of the trigger. Now, I mean, everybody jerks the trigger. I mean, because we're moving at such fast speeds, and now we learn that grip is really the thing you really, grip and vision are things you really need to concentrate on now. But as a beginning shooter, you really have to learn the fundamentals. And back then, I used to jerk the dog shit out of the trigger, and he would just smack me, and he'd be like, "Just quit doing it." And he was like, and finally, he was the one that got me over that. And I never really did it again after that point. I mean, I still did it again, but not to that extent. And he got me over that. He got me over that hump. And he was one of the original guys back in the day that was out there doing this stuff. Back with I think it was Colonel Cooper. I mean, there was a bunch of people back in that day, but he was one of the original people. So he really got me over that hump.
Was
So
there something in particular he said, or was it just working with you over
just
time?
working with me on that individual basis and basically saying, hey, this is a mental thing. Like you need to overcome this. This is a mental hurdle that you need to basically train your brain to get over. It's not a physical thing. It's a mental thing. And that's when I was like, okay, like I'm overthinking this whole thing. And that's when I just realized, okay, it's a mental thing. Let me just get over this hurdle. And he was right. I eventually got over it. And he pushed me to get over that hump. And I never forget that. So, but
At
now,
what point did, I'm
no, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, at what point during all of these classes did you learn about dry fire and the effectiveness of it?
Back in the day, I don't think it was as important, or there wasn't a lot of information on it. So Ron Avery was the one that really talked to us about dry fire. So did Jerry Barnhart. And then that's when he was like, look, I have a dry fire regimen that I do every day. And then he basically told us how he does his regimen. He was the first person that actually broke it down because 15, 20 years ago, it just wasn't talked about like it is now. I mean, now you can buy targets, you can buy dry fire manuals. Those things didn't even exist back in the day, nor did the internet really. So you kind of had to go out and seek that information. And he was the one that really said, look, you need to get on a dry fire program. He's like, because I basically build my skills in dry fire, and then I basically take them to the range live fire, and I just basically just confirm them live fire because he's like, not everybody can afford to shoot as much as I can. So that's why dry fire needs to be imperative because that's where it's your skill builder. That's where you learn your fundamentals. That's where you learn your draws. That's where you learn your reloads, et cetera, et cetera. That's where you learn how to do your transitions. But nowadays everybody knows, I mean, you can seek information everywhere on dry fire. It just wasn't available back in the day.
Steve Anderson has a whole podcast about it.
He does. And I've
It's
read all
great.
his books, read all of Ben Steger's books. Yeah, it's just, there's so much information. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like you see these GMs today, they've been shooting for like 2-3 months and they're already a GM because if
Yeah.
you know where to find the information, the most pertinent information, you can get good really quickly and really efficiently if you know where to look for the information.
I mean,
And
look at Jay Beal and Joey Sauerland. They've,
yes,
90% of their skills all came right through. They just rapidly became good through dry fire. And then at the end, they started doing more live fire to,
yeah.
get to where they needed to be.
Except you still have. So I had a conversation with Todd Jarrett one time, and I was like, "Hey, when you won your first national championship, how much were you shooting, and how much were you dry firing back then?" And he told me, I remember, I'm gonna spit my water out. He said he was dry firing like 4.5 hours a day, and he shot like 250,000 rounds that year.
I don't even know how you shoot that much. I honestly don't.
And
That's a lot of ammunition.
I said, Todd, did your elbows did you get tendonitis? Did you? He said, nope. I was like, Todd, I wouldn't be able to lift my arms, man. You know.
That is literally a crazy, crazy number. I'm a numbers guy, so I know that that's a crazy number. 250 divided by 365. That's 633 rounds a day, every single day.
I would say probably some sessions are probably like 2,000-3,000 rounds, 4,000 rounds, whatever. You know what I mean? But
Right. But then think, I mean, I've had people on who talk about, they can't. You hear about Eric Graffel doing like 1,200 in
mhm,
a day, but there are a lot of people that can't maintain that focus
right,
for that long. So Maria Gashina, who was sixth in at the 2017, almost said 1917, 2017 IPSC World Championships, where she was only 40 points behind Ben, who won
wow,
the title. She's like, I can only shoot 250 to 300 rounds in a session because then my focus starts to wander and my training isn't as good. So, I'm like, trying to visualize how these other people are doing 1 and 2,000 rounds and maintaining focus. So it's good training is hard to do.
It is, and I think it comes down to everybody individually, and obviously it comes down to a cost factor for people like you and I because we're not sponsored,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah, if Supervel sent me, 10,000 rounds a month, I mean that's a different story. But still, it comes down to a time factor because the range where I shoot at is a good hour away. So it takes me an hour to get there, an hour to get home. Sometimes I sit in traffic getting back. So it just comes down to a time factor. Then I have other things going on in my life. I have my business. I do other things. I write. I like to work out. You have to spend time with my wife. Yada yada yada. It's just the normal thing. So I guess if you're sponsored and that's your full time job, that's probably one thing. But for someone who just wants to get better and compete at a higher level in our sport, that's probably, yeah, that's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for your lifestyle. Probably spend more
At
time.
20
Yeah.
at 20 cents a round, that's 50
Yeah.
grand.
Yeah. Can't afford that. Yeah.
No. No.
I would say at my height, like when I'm really training, I'm probably shooting 600 rounds a week, maybe in the summer. Like when I'm really at my peak, probably shooting maybe 250 per session, 300 per session, twice a week. Dry firing pretty much 5, 6 days a week, maybe half hour at a time. I used to dry fire an hour, hour and a half a day, and it got to be too much for me. Um, and I think as you get a certain skill level, you just need to maintain it, and then this becomes the problem. This is the
Yeah.
big, the great eliminator in our sport. And once you learn how to overcome that mental piece, that unlocks a lot of things for you. So, and I feel like that's where I'm at now. I'm finally okay with where I'm at mentally, and I think my mental game is way stronger than it was years ago. So,
I think if you look back, yesterday I put out the top 10 for open PCC and revolver for this decade. So I looked at all the nationals from 2020 to 2025, and they're all ranked in there based on, what their placement has been in each one and different stuff. But my point is that I've got all the divisions already done, which I'll be releasing 3 more today, 3 more tomorrow, and then the top 15 on Thursday from the entire decade so far. From all the divisions, top 15.
mhm.
And if you look at the top 10 of each nationals, they're all high-level shooters.
Oh, absolutely.
2 different nationals I've talked to Nils where he's like, I may have won, but I wasn't the best shooter out here. And it goes to say exactly what you're saying. The best shooter doesn't necessarily win nationals. It's the best competitor that
Yes.
wins nationals.
Yeah, because they pretty much all have the same skill level. But
Correct.
it's just their mental game, and they could all have different circumstances at that match or whatever. There could be illnesses involved. God only knows what's going through their mind at that
Right.
given time. But if you like every time you look at a major match, you always see like A class shooters or M class shooters kind of hang in for the first couple of days, and then they just kind of go by the wayside as the days go on because it's the mental thing. GMs can do it on demand, and they're just used to grinding it out mentally. And that's what separates them. That's what separates the great guys from the good guys. So
I'm going to step out on a limb here, and I may get some hate mail for this one, but I think if you go back and look at individuals who have won a single national, I think things fell into alignment for them.
it's true.
I think the people that have won multiple are the ones who have figured it out and know how to compete at the highest level.
That's true. I don't think you're any hate mail for that at all. I think that's extremely that's very pertinent to what we're talking about. That's the secret sauce. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we could go through all the different divisions and all the great shooters, but only those that have figured it out can get back to that top position more than once. Because it's all at that point. If you're winning a national championship, it's literally, yes, it takes skill, but skill doesn't win that match. It
True.
is all mental. 100% of it is mental.
That being said, that's one thing I want to put on my list this year is to take Daniel Horner's mental management class. I've done Anderson's before and it was great. It kind of unlocked a lot of doors for me, but I really want to do Daniel Horner's. He claims that he doesn't shoot a whole lot. That's what he claims. I mean, I'm sure he does, but he said, I don't shoot as much as my competitors, as my colleagues. But he said he really learned how to leverage this, and that's why he wins championships every year. And his is self-paced. I really want to take it. So that's on my to-do list this year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And like,
Self-paced.
yeah, you do it. It's a self-paced thing. It's not a live class like Anderson's is, where I think Anderson's is over like 2 or 3 nights or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just do it self-paced. And I want to say it's like $250 or something like that. But he's like, I will give you the keys to succeed with all of these, with all this material that I have in this class. And this is what I've been using for years to win championships. So
That would be interesting because him being a former AMU shooter,
mhm.
and having gone through some mental management training there, obviously, I wonder how he's changed it
I don't
to,
know.
you know what I mean? Like what tweaks has he made that he's found that has worked
It
in
works for
these
him.
more dynamic shooting sports? It
Well,
does work for him.
yeah, he's a beast. I mean, no, I don't know when the guy's gonna who's gonna unseat him. I mean, he just every year he's like a machine. So
Well, that's like Doug Koenig. He's won what, 29 Bianchi Cup titles. It's like the dude wins every freaking year. It's like somebody's got to step up and beat that guy. It's like saying someone needs to step up and beat Eric Graffel.
right,
Someone's got to do it at some
well,
point.
God bless you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Easier said than done.
God bless you. Yeah. So
So, yeah, I'm thinking about creating a hall of fame of shooters across different sports because there's a lot of great ones. Rob Latham, I think he's the greatest American
absolutely.
practical shooter of all time. He's got 29 USPSA. I've actually done a whole presentation on it, so I've got it put
Oh wow,
together.
I'd like to
And
see that.
he's got well, it'll end up being like an Instagram post type of thing
Okay.
where it's slide after slide after slide. But man, all the stuff that he's accomplished in, I through IDPA Steel Challenge, USPSA, world title, it's just wow, what has he not accomplished?
And
And he's
how many of our top warriors in this country has he taught? That's another thing. He
yeah,
was the guy back in the day that was going down to brag. They used to bring him in all the time. He was the top guy. So, yeah.
he's also the only American who's won a national title in 5 different decades. 5 different decades. That's
Insane.
crazy. The
It's
dude
insane.
was like 60 or almost 60 or at 60, and he won a title.
The thing is, too, a lot of people look at him and they're like, the guy's not athletic. I beg to differ. He actually moves really well for a big guy.
He does.
He
Yeah.
moves
If you
really,
look at some of his older ones, he looks a little stiff, but he
yeah.
moves well.
Now, I mean, obviously, if you look at Todd Jarrett, like that guy mesmerizes me. And that's what I miss about shooting up in Virginia, North Carolina, is I used to try to squad with him as much as possible. And Todd is one of those guys that just doesn't age. And his movement to this day is still so smooth. And it just, like when I think of movement, I think of Todd. So,
Todd is a local guy. I mean, well, he lives in Richmond, but I mean, he shoots Fredericksburg still quite frequently. And that dude, you would not guess that he's as old as he is by watching him shoot.
he's
He
phenomenal.
still moves great.
He's a great dude, too, man. I love that guy. So,
There's a lot of history out there with those guys. Rob's the one guy I would love to have on the show just to talk history of the sport.
true. He
I
knows
mean,
it.
he's
Yeah.
been here from the beginning.
Yeah. That's,
It was
I
I
would
had
love
a
to see.
conversation with Todd about that and how because Todd, if you get on the phone with Todd, he'll just keep talking. He won't stop. You know what I mean? And that's not a bad thing.
I think I heard your one podcast with Todd, and the information that was coming out of his mouth, I'm like, I don't even like. It was just incredible. Yeah. So, because he was basically back in the day, he was one of the people that developed a lot of like the red dot optics, and I was like, oh my god, this guy's just a wealth of knowledge. So,
Developed his own 38 I mean, the 38 TJ. So yeah. But he was talking about how, obviously there was no internet, there were no cell phones. So they're like calling each other on, a hard line every day, on a landline every day. Like, hey, what are you doing? It's wow. It goes back to what you're saying. I mean, the amount of information that is available today. What could those guys have done?
Right.
How good could they have been had they had all this information
True.
already at hand? You know?
He was actually something about Todd as well. He was back with Blackwater back when they first started. So kind of we kind of had a relationship. Todd was already like on their cadre back in the day. He was there from like the beginning. So with I think it was Al Clark and Del McClellan, and they brought him in, and he was teaching classes there like back when they first opened, back when they were basically just teaching like open enrollment classes and to law enforcement. So yeah, he was one of the original guys there. So
I could only imagine how much of a beast he would have been 20 years ago.
yeah, yeah.
Holy cow. And you took a Sean Griffith class. I've had him on.
Did Sean is an awesome instructor, a phenomenal human being, and a phenomenal instructor. I learned a lot from Sean, and I would actually like to take another one of his classes. Sean has the ability to break things down so everybody understands them, like at a layman's level, and he's very good at articulating information, and he's a phenomenal shooter. And if you get him talking about shooting, he will geek out about it all day, which I love. I love to pick his brain. So yeah, I got a lot out of that class.
So he's passionate. That's good.
He's very passionate. He's a very good instructor. That's probably one of the better classes I've ever taken. And I told him that.
Nice. Now here's when you started talking, this popped up in my head. Have you been to a school where you're like, I wasn't ready for this. Like I need to take a different class and then come back to this one.
For me,
Because some people talk at a very high level and it's hard to understand until you've had something that will help you get closer to that level to be able to understand what they're talking about.
I kind of always, probably not for me, because I've always geeked out about shooting. So I was always kind of like trying to learn what the latest information was and process it before I could even go to these schools. So when I would go to these schools, I'd be familiar. Like, for instance, I've always been a cheater. I always believe in if you're not cheating, you're not trying. So before I went to Ron Avery, I bought his videotapes. I basically had VHS tapes. I had all three of them back then. I wore them out ad nauseum. So when I went to Ron, I already kind of knew what he was. I knew everything. I knew his system, but I just had to put it into practical application. So I've always been that type of person that goes above and beyond and really try to process information ahead of time and try to get ahead of the game. So I don't like to go into things. I'm a preparation type guy. Like if I give a presentation, I'm going to work on it for a week before I actually give it. That's just how I am. I feel like I learn best from getting prepared. So I've never really been into a situation where that's not me. I would feel weird if I went somewhere. If I go to a class and I don't perform, I get performance anxiety because I just demand myself to do things that I'm supposed to do that I know I can do. So I've never been in a situation where I'm really not really prepared. That's not me. I actually get more anxiety when I'm not prepared. So
Yeah. Well, that's when you embarrass yourself.
yes, but some people don't give a shit. So that's just not me. I just feel like it's my reputation and I don't want to embarrass myself. And specifically, if I'm going to pay good money, I want to get something
Right.
out of it.
Well,
So,
and I bring that up because my dad was the head coach of the Marine Corps rifle team at one point for
okay.
several years. And he said something one time. I was young, much younger, I might have been late teens or, 20, 21. I don't know. I was very young. But he said, I can't teach basic marksmanship
Hmm.
to people. And I was like, I didn't understand what he was talking about. And then when I was instructing at the sniper school, we would have him come up and teach wind reading
Mm-hmm.
because he was so good at wind reading. When they would do 600 and 1,000-yard matches, he would get on the yard line, read the wind, then go back and tell his shooters to put on two left or two right or whatever.
Wow.
And then when they came up to the line, those were just bullshit numbers. But the other competitors would be waiting to hear his wind calls. So then he was working off of bullshit numbers on the sites. So if he went back and told him two left at the beginning, and then he gets up on the line and he says, give me two right. So basically there's no wind, he's just re-zeroing them, but other people would listen in to see what he would call before they would make a shot. So he developed this whole strategy of, I'm going to give you bullshit numbers at the beginning. So when we get up there, I'll give you the real number, and then he'll calculate the other stuff and do the numbers. But so when we were teaching the sniper students, he would actually have people at different yard lines tossing smoke grenades and then explaining to the students what's happening and why and all of that. But that was when it struck me, oh, he could not do that with someone who wasn't at that level, because
True.
they would never understand what the hell he was talking about.
That's funny. Yeah.
So that's why I asked that question. Did you ever get into a class where you're like, oh, my shooting knowledge level isn't high enough to be in that class, because that person can't speak at that Sean Griffith level who can explain it to you in layman's terms?
Right. No, I completely understand that. And so when you get at a higher level, and that's why I think Sean is so good, because Sean also teaches people every day. That's what he does for a living at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. So he's used to speaking to that lowest common denominator. And believe me, I've been to FLETC several times. So it is a factory, right? It's just
right. Yes.
Put them on this speed belt and just get them through and qual and get them the hell out of here.
Right.
So Sean can speak at that lowest common denominator. And there's actually another, you talk about instructors they're not known. There's another guy that I'm friends with who is a FLETC instructor down here, Dave White. Guy's a phenomenal instructor. You'll never hear his name, but the best instructor you will ever have anywhere. When I was with diplomatic security up at our facility near Fort Pickett, we brought him up to teach our firearms instructors because we were transitioning to red dots. And this guy, Dave White, basically wrote the curriculum at FLETC for red dots. And we brought him up, and he brought all of his guns with every red dot that he had mounted to all of his Glocks. And we brought him up for a day. And our instructors were they're like, this guy, where did you find this guy? They're like, he's phenomenal. And I was like, I told you. You'll never hear his name. But he's a phenomenal instructor because he's not out there. He's still working for the government. So there's some really good instructors out there, but
and those are the best ones who can talk to every level of shooter. And, when you talked about Sean and FLETC, I wasn't laughing because, oh, they're dumb shooters. No, it's because people who go through FLETC, one guy could be an A-class shooter. The other guy could have never held a pistol in his life.
Yep.
So that's why.
And it's not only that and Sean would tell you this probably, well, he maybe on the DL, but a lot of the instructors there, they're just not very good. They're just not, because they're not gun people. They're there because they basically went to a firearms instructor class and they're an instructor. So now they're teaching people how to shoot, and they're not teaching people properly how to shoot. And I could see where Sean would get frustrated, or how any instructor could get frustrated being in that type of environment.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah.
But that's the federal government for you at its finest. So
that's the unfortunate side of federal government. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. And we know that there are certain people that, I saw it in the military. I saw it in local county government. And I've seen it other places where you have a person who they're underperforming. So you're like, I need to put them somewhere. Oh, where's the least place they're going to do damage? Oh, they think the least place they'll do damage. So they just slide them in a spot somewhere. And then next thing you know, that's where they're at.
Yep. It's unfortunate. We were in diplomatic security when I ran basically our basic special agent training for 2 years, or actually, 4 years. I basically ran the whole portfolio, and we were always the last to get anything, budget, money, anything. And you would think that agencies would put training on a pedestal, but it's the opposite. We get nothing, and we have to make do with everything we have. but yet they want these people to perform. Once they graduate, they want them to be able to perform at a high level. And I'm like, we can't work miracles. You got to give us resources. And that's just how it
Right.
works everywhere. So, because when you graduate, when you become a DS agent, they don't think that there's a difference between agents. They think everybody is mission capable. Everybody's at the same level, which we know is not a reality. That's setting people up
Right.
for failure. They basically in DS they basically throw you in the 12 feet deep section of the pool and they expect you to swim immediately. And if you can't swim, they're like, okay, we'll just move on to the next person. And that's just how it works. You could literally be an agent, then the next day you could find yourself overseas in a high threat area and they expect you to be able to do the job and perform, but that's not realistically what actually happens, but that's what they expect. So
It happens in the military too,
yep,
unfortunately. It
yep,
seems like all the big ticket items get all the money, and the little guy who needs the training, whether it be the infantry or whatever, doesn't get the necessary amount of training or live fire time. Because, and I say that because when I was in the military, there was a time we were getting ready to go on a 6-month Mediterranean deployment. So our lieutenant's like, look, we need to go to the range and do some live fire maneuvering and stuff, immediate action drill, stuff like that with live fire, and we couldn't get ammo. So
wow,
we literally had to go out in town and buy ammo
oh my
to
god,
then go on a military training range to do live fire training before we deployed overseas. So I know that it's happened. I know I've lived it. So
that's one thing I will say about diplomatic security though. We don't scrimp on ammo. We have unlimited amounts of ammo. We shoot a lot of ammo, probably more than any other federal agency. We shoot a ton, and we have unlimited access to ammo. So that was one good thing about my agency. So, and you could even, on your days off, you could always sign up proficiency fire and go to the range and just shoot as much as you wanted to, like every
oh
week.
wow.
Yeah. So we did have that nailed down. And like I said, ammo was not an issue. So,
So if you couldn't shoot, the issue wasn't you didn't have the time or the ammo.
yes, it's
It's
on
on
you.
you.
It's on you.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. All right. Let's do. Let's see here. So when did you all right, so you said around 2020 you started to get into shooting.
Hmm.
Now, number one, how did you find I know you said you were aware of it, but something tripped your trigger there and you became more interested in it. What was that? What made you get into it?
So I've been talking to a lot of people at the time that were in the sport, and they kind of were like, "Hey," I kind of felt like that was the year I was going to do it because I had the time. So I first started off in the tactical games. Are you familiar with the tactical games?
Yes.
And that's back when they were actually the tactical games, when actually police officers and military people were actually competing. Now it's not really like that. But I kind of started off in that, and then it kind of grew. I was like, okay, let's do something different. Let's just go to like a competition where there's shooting and not physical skills. So that's when I started looking into USPSA and two gun. And at the time, I was living in Northern Virginia, and I was shooting out at this place in West Virginia, and COVID hit, and that was really one of the only places that was open. So we were basically, I was working from home, and on my days off, I would go out to this range in West Virginia and just shoot all the time. And at the time, I don't think West Virginia stopped having USPSA matches. God, what's the facility out there in?
The Shadowhawk?
Yes,
Yeah.
so there was another facility I used to shoot at that was over the mountain, but
Right.
USPSA never stopped at Shadowhawk. So that was the first USPSA match I shot was at Shadowhawk, and I just
Okay.
addicted. Yeah, and it was right in the middle of COVID, and people in West Virginia didn't give a shit about COVID because COVID never existed in West Virginia, correct? So you know,
Right.
so I went out there and started shooting, and I was like, okay, I love
Uh,
this. And then I started shooting two gun matches out there, and then I just kind of like went on, and it kind of branched out from there. Just
Interesting. I'm trying to see when my last match was at Shadowhawk. It's been a while because, like I said, I had a 3-year break.
That's a
Not
phenomenal facility.
not because I wanted to.
I think I shot there probably was in the spring or summer of 2020. And then we moved to Richmond shortly after that.
Okay, so I shot there in August of 2020. I see that one.
Oh, wow.
That might have been my last. I need to get back up there
And I DQ'd my second match ever. And
at
that's when
Shadowhawk.
yeah, that's when I learned about the 180 rule. Never did it
That'll
again.
teach you.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like an idiot.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we all do when stuff
Yep.
like that happens. It
Yep.
sucks. It really is. I was at Area 8. I think it might have been at Area 8. I DQ'd because of a 180 there. It was underneath that. Okay, you didn't shoot there in August of 2020. I know that.
No, it was probably like June, July, probably something like that. Because I think we moved in August, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
and
hold
then
on. Here's a July.
I think
Let
I
me check
DQ'd
that
in
one.
July, maybe.
You're right. That was the match
Yep.
that you were DQ'd on.
Yep.
And here is June. Oh, Dave Wampler won that one.
Of course.
Right.
I saw him shoot the first time, and I was like, "What in the hell is that?" I saw him on one of the bays. I'm like, "Oh my god, this guy can move like that." I was like,
You
"God,
were you were 87th. I was 93rd.
oh wow, yep, that was my first match." I had no clue what I was doing. Had no clue about stage planning. Had no clue about anything.
Well, you didn't do too shabby. So when you first started, okay, at Shadowhawk in 2020, what were you shooting?
I was shooting a Glock 34. I started off
MOS.
limited.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was right before I transitioned to red dots. So I started off in limited.
Was it a 9 or was it a 40?
It was 9, so I was shooting minor power factor. It was a tricked out Glock 34, had the frame redone by Treyarch and had all Terran parts inside. And I shot that for probably, I think, until the end of the year. And then I transitioned to dots at the end of the year, I believe. I got my first dot at the end of the year. So, and now I just shoot all
Okay.
kinds. Yeah. So
Well, are you still shooting Glocks with a dot or are you
I am,
shooting?
yeah. So here's my number one right here. This is my Terran 34. This is my primary gun. I don't know if I'm going to shoot it this year. I'm going to
Mhm.
build another one. I love his Timney triggers, but they broke 3 times already, so I have to keep sending them back to California. But this trigger is phenomenal. It's probably like 1.8 pounds. So it's a once you get used to using that Glock trigger, you'll never want to touch anything. I found something that's similar. There's a new company called Tactical Trigger, and they're making it's called an enhanced performance trigger that's very similar. So I have that one of my other guns. I'll probably be shooting it this year. It's not much pressure at all. And I really love these Vortex Defender XLs. I like them much more than the SROs. I've broken 5 SROs already. I keep sending them back.
Really?
Yes. I literally one time was shooting doubles at a range and the window just exploded. And
Wow. I've had my SRO since 2019 and it's never broken or it's never lost zero.
I've broken so many of
Wow.
them. Yeah, and I'm hard on stuff,
Man.
but I'm not that hard. I'm not. It's not like I'm shooting 1,000 rounds every day. So, but yeah, I've had a lot of issues. I really like the new Vortex Defenders. I think I'm going to shoot that this year, and I just like that window. It's so much bigger. Not that there's anything wrong with the SRO, but I just like the Defender. I have like 3 of them now. So
I've heard mixed reviews. A lot of people like them, even the individuals who've had issues, but I've heard that they've been having some issues and I think there's another model. I mean, an updated version
okay.
coming out.
Well, so we'll see how it holds up this year. If I can get back into match shape here and start shooting again in April. Well, I haven't shot a whole match year with one, so we'll see how they hold up. So, but so far I probably put the last couple of months I've been shooting a lot, and I've probably put maybe 4 or 5 thousand rounds through the gun and haven't had an issue yet. So it's been holding up pretty well. So
Those TTI guns are not cheap.
They are not cheap. This is the old model. They don't even make this anymore. This is their performance package. The only thing that's different, it just doesn't have the slide cuts. Um, and I chose to do that because the wait time was a lot less, but it has everything else in it. I
Mm,
mean, the stippling is phenomenal. I mean, how they do their trigger undercuts, it's just phenomenal. But no, they are not cheap. And the problem is they got too big after the John Wick movies. Now everybody wants one, and it leaves
right.
shooters that are really into the sport. It leaves people like us waiting. So, and they're making these guns for big distributors. So they'll make like batches of guns for like these big handgun distributors. They'll make like 10 here, 10 there, and they're not really. I think they're kind of. I don't know what their business model is, but they were originally designed to be for shooters, and I think they've gotten too big. So, but that being
Mm,
said, if I ever need anything from them, they're phenomenal. So
he did a collaboration with Canik. Have you shot that one?
I have not, but I heard that gun is phenomenal, and for the price point, you can't beat it.
Yeah, I haven't shot it, so I don't know. I mean, I've played with it. I played with it at SHOT Show when it came out, but I've not shot it.
I think it's what under $1,000.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
like 950 without an optic. So I'm not a big comp guy, so the comp doesn't attract me.
right. And there's no practicality. I mean, obviously, like it's a range toy for us because you're not going to shoot. You're not going to take that gun in God, what's the division, the race gun division in USPSA?
Open,
Yeah, you're not
open,
going to take that and open. You'll get spanked. So there's just really
right?
there's no applicability for it for us. So it's a range toy. You know,
Yeah,
everybody.
you would have to do a lot more to it to make it an open
Yes,
gun and
yeah,
be competitive with it. You know.
absolutely. So everybody keeps
Has
talking about this new staccato 4-inch comp gun, and I'm like, what am I going to do with that? It looks great, and I'm sure it shoots well, but what am I going to do with it? It's a range toy.
Yeah, or a collector's item. Yeah,
Yeah. So
and I'm not into either one of those.
I shoot my guns, and that's why I've thought about changing from Glocks so many times, but I'm like, why? Like, I'm not a sponsored shooter, and I've been carrying Glocks professionally for almost 30 years now, and I'm just like, why? It's just not. And honestly, I just got the new Gen 6, the Gen 6 17, and I love that gun. I got it for basically work, and because I like full size guns. I don't really like concealing a 19. I'd rather conceal a 17. I just like having that full size gun. And I took that gun right out of the box. I took it to the range, and that thing shoots phenomenal. Did I changed the connector and the trigger spring, and that was it. And that gun is pretty phenomenal.
Have
So
you noticed? I played with one at a gun show in January. Have you? To me, it felt like the Gen 5. Have you noticed any real differences in it?
I have for to me, like I'm very finicky with things, and for me it just felt different. It felt like it was home for me as soon as I picked it up. I think I like the stippling. I like the trigger undercut. And I think the trigger's better. I like the flat face trigger. I think it's an overall better gun. I know some people don't like the beaver tail. They hate the beaver tail. That doesn't bother me one way or the other. People are like, I can't get high up on the gun, but it's a moot point for me. So I like it. I like it a lot. The more I shoot it, the more I like it. I mean, I actually thought about maybe shooting one competitively, but honestly, this gun shoots so well. And I have a 13 pound spring in here. And honestly, this gun has like zero recoil. And with shooting 124 Super Val through this thing, it's like a pop gun. There's like no recoil in it at all. So so I'm like, it's probably not a time to switch. So
Do you have a slug in that thing?
a what?
Do you have the fill in the back of the grip?
Yes. Yeah, I got the brass from
Okay.
CHP. Yes, yes, and that
Plug.
helps a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, and my guns. Yeah.
I guess with
So
the longer barrel and then that brass in the grip, that helps.
that helps, and also it helps when you experiment with your springs, your recoil springs. So the one thing about a TTI about these Timney triggers is you cannot really change your recoil springs because there's Timneys work on like an inertia type deal, and if you do, you'll start getting light strikes. That is the one thing I don't like about Timney triggers. So this has basically just a heavy recoil, like it has a a tungsten recoil guide in it, but I couldn't lighten up the trigger, or excuse me, the recoil spring, because you start getting light strikes. But with this tactical trigger, I played around and I got it down to 13 pounds, and it basically minimizes the recoil to nothing. Because that's what I used to shoot before when I was just shooting stock Glock triggers and just changing out the internals. I was down to 13-pound springs. Some people say you can get down to 11-pound springs, but I think that's kind of like riding the line of probably reliability.
Did
So,
you have to change the striker spring with that?
mm-hmm. Some at a
Okay.
4.5 pound, yeah. And I have not had one issue with that gun whatsoever. So
And that's the performance trigger you were talking about?
yeah, it's called the Tactical Trigger Enhanced Performance Trigger. It's based off of the Glock
Gotcha.
Performance Trigger. Yeah, and that trigger is probably 2 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal trigger. And Super Veil, I don't know if you've ever shot Super Veil ammo, but they're 124. I love it because it's soft, very soft shooting, but it still cycles my slide faster, if that makes sense. I
Okay.
like a round that gets my dot back on target quickly and enables me to transition. And that's why I like the 124 over the 147. I feel like 147 is just too slow for me, the way I shoot. Some people
Well,
like it. Yeah,
I've got some 135s that I'm going to be shooting, but I like the 124s over the 115s. The 115s are a little snappy.
they are.
I think the 124 right now is a very good middle ground, but I'm really curious to shoot some of these 135s. I'm just waiting for the weather to get better up here.
This is what I
Um,
carry in my work gun. These are 135s. This is a pretty good round.
okay.
Yeah, that's a very good round. So, but yeah, Super Veil stuff. I just love it. Most 124s are like, if you buy 124s off the shelf, they're snappy. But I have no idea what Super Veil does, but their 124s are softer shooting than most 147s.
Well, with the testing I've been doing, it seems like the 124s off the shelf are running about a 140 power factor.
That's pretty hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it explains why the gun should cycle every single
Right.
time, and it's going to be a little snappier, you know?
Yeah, I think Super
So,
Veils are like 130 power factor.
and most of the competition stuff I've been shooting is right around 130.
Yeah.
Been a couple that were like upper 120s and lower 130s, but on average, they're all about 130, which I think 130s
Hmm.
that perfect zone. It gives you a little bit of leeway either way, you know, so it's good.
No, I love it. Yeah. I'm glad I hooked up with them. They're a phenomenal company. Good people too. So
You were doing the whole one. Oh, let me stop that. That is loud. I don't know if you heard that.
I did.
Yeah, let me hey, sir, turn that way down. But you've been doing that whole one reload one thing.
Yeah, it's a party trick. I saw it online. I mean, it is a party trick. That's what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
there's no practical applicability for it. And honestly, it just if you keep doing it over and over, you're going to get bad habits. So I saw a video. There was a video on Instagram from a guy by the name of Ryan DeLeo, or I think that's his name, Ryan DeLillo. And he said that. So this is kind of like Instagram lore. He's like, there was a guy that did the fastest one shot from the holster reload one shot in like 1.19. And I saw him, he put it on his story and he's like, look, I'm trying to break it. So I was like, you know what? I could probably shoot it that fast. I could probably shoot it faster. So I started playing around with it in dry fire. And I set my par time to 1.1 and I was beating it every time. And I'm like, okay, I think I can beat this. And I got to the range that day. And I think that was probably the fourth take and I got it that fast. And I was like, okay, I'm done before I shoot myself. I'm not going to push any harder because I mean, you're moving at such fast speeds. I think that draw was in like 0.39.
that's what you had in
Yeah,
the comments. Yeah.
I've
Or in
drawn
the write up.
faster than that before. I think my fastest draw was 0.34. But I mean, when you're moving at such a high speed, you don't even see what's going on. I mean, there's obviously, I'm not even seeing my dot. I'm literally just staring at the target and hoping the rounds are going to go where I want them to go at that fast of speed. So yeah, it was basically a party trick thing. And I was like, I got to put this on Instagram. And I basically tagged him and he saw it. And he's like, oh my God, now I got to beat 114. I was like, yeah, so sorry. you got to work down another 5/10 of a second or 5/100 of a second, whatever it is. So
Well, I'm going to play it real quick so we can watch it. Here we go. It almost looks like you're trying to throw the bullet down range, you know?
pretty much, yeah, yeah. There's no it's not very mechanical, but I think honestly, if I get the time, I think I'm going to play around with it again. I think I can get under 1.10. So we'll see.
Really?
Yeah, I think I can do it because I set the par time to 1 second about a week ago, and I was beating that a couple of times. So I think
Wow.
there's a little meat left on the bone there. I think I can get that reload down a little bit more, and I think I can definitely knock some time off the draw. So it may.
Makes you wonder how quick someone like an Isaac Lockwood, a Billy Barton, or a Jay Beal, you know, because their reloads are so freaking ridiculously fast.
They are.
How quick could they do it? You know, if somebody
Mhm.
really played around with this, and
Oh,
I agree,
yes.
there's really no functionality here except, but at the same time, you know, I've done some stuff at the FBI Academy, and I had a guy tell me that there was a shootout in the elevator at the FBI Academy in their 13-story building. Both guys emptied their guns and nobody was hit. So maybe there is some functionality to this. You know what I mean?
Think about it. Let's kind of think about this from a law enforcement perspective. Most cops can't break leather and get one good accurate shot in an A zone in under a second and a half. Just one shot. And that's really fast for a lot of cops. So I mean, when you think about that in 114, what you can do in 114, I mean, it's just why are we training our people like this? We're setting them up for failure, right? So
Right.
I mean, there's just I think everybody should be able to push a second, even with duty gear, should be able to push a lower second draw
Why is
if
it?
they were trained correctly. So it just
Yeah.
you gotta ask yourself, why is our training not catching up to modern times? So
Well, I think I want to add another perspective to that too. And part of that is also if you're in that role, if that's your job, if
mhm,
that's your profession, then you have to take some of that accountability on yourself too, where if you're carrying that gun 24 hours a day like you're supposed to,
mhm,
then you've got to be responsible for your ability to utilize that tool. You know, you can't always put 100% on your department or whomever it is you work for. You've got to take some of that responsibility on yourself and do that. And I say that because when I was in the military and I was in an instructor role,
mhm.
I would come in on Saturdays, pull a gun out of our armory and some ammo and go down range and shoot on my own because when you're an instructor, you're not getting as much trigger time as you are coaching time.
True.
So you've got to take time to keep your own skills up. So if your job is to carry a gun for your life, that's what you do as part of your profession, then you have to take the time as well to maintain proficiency or get better, become more proficient, you know?
That's why I'm a big fan of USPSA because I believe that you don't really realize the skills that you need. And everybody's like, oh, it's just a sport. I'm like, let me ask you something. Do you want to shoot faster and more accurately? They're like, yes. I was like, well, then it's really not a sport if you think about it. It's all based on those two basically things shooting rounds fast and accurately. It's time and points. And I'm like, so let's equate that to like a real life scenario. It's the same thing. You want to win a gunfight as fast as possible, put rounds on target accurately and fast. There's no different. And people are like, well, it's a sport. I'm like, yeah, I get it. There's a movement piece and things, but shooting is shooting. Shooting doesn't change. And USPSA shooters are really good. I mean, there's always that those arguments online about tactics versus shooting. I would rather take a guy any day that could put rounds on target faster, more accurately than a guy that knows tactics, because tactics are
Yeah.
useless if you can't shoot something fast and accurately. It's
Yeah.
useless. So
Well, and I would say too that every single stage at a USPSA match, regardless of level of match, it's a test. Every single stage you shoot is a test. Doesn't
Yes.
matter if it's your local match or nationals. They're all, it's a, if it's a 5-stage local or an 8-stage local, that's a 5-stage test, an 8-stage test. I
Yep.
mean, every stage is a test.
Performance on demand. It is the closest thing that you can replicate being into a gunfight besides being in a gunfight because and for the person who just gets into it, I mean, obviously they're going to be amped up because they don't know how to control their nerves yet. They haven't learned how to do that. So it gets you in that pressure mode because all your friends are watching. And once that match is done, all your scores are on practice scores. So everybody can see what you
For
did.
the world to see.
So it's
I
on
I
demand.
always laugh when people like block out names and stuff. I'm like, well, what? It's open to the public. You don't have to
True.
black people's names out.
I guess it's just a courtesy. I don't know.
I think so too. Oh, there was something I wanted to ask you though. I guess it'd be a little bit of, hold on one second here. Let me do this. Going back to your 1-in-1, your 1-reload-1, I wanted to, you had written down a .75 reload,
Mm-hmm.
which I want to debate that for just a second. I
Okay.
don't think that's a .75 reload. What I don't know is how much time we deduct for reacquiring your grip and your sight. I don't know how much time that takes, but so are we talking .65 to .7 reload?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because
Everybody uses that same number. You're not
yes,
the only one, but
that's
I
the only
mean,
thing that tangibly shows up on your timer. Yes. So
exactly.
yes, yeah, that's a good point. And I've thought about that recently as well. I mean, it's probably, to be quite honest with you, the reload's probably more like 0.45 or 0.50 or something like that, because there's probably another quarter of a second that it takes to reacquire to get the load fully in and turn the gun and get the gun back up on target and get that round out. So
Right.
that probably takes
Yeah.
at least a quarter of a second.
Yeah. That .75 is just the time from one shot to the other. But I
Yes.
don't know how much time it actually takes to reload because you've got to, I assume we would count it. I guess we could start it from the moment the shot is fired, I guess, but it's not till the next shot is fired because again, once that mag is seated, the
Hmm.
reload is done.
True.
So that's where I don't know how long does it take to go from fully seated to grip rotated to,
Hmm.
weapon back on target. That's the time. But yeah, my point is your reload's actually faster than .75.
Hey, I'll take
We
it.
just don't know. I would be curious. That's why I brought it up. I was like, you'd have to slow it down and probably go frame by frame and then mark
You
where
still there?
I forget what we were.
Talking about the reload.
Right. Yeah. I just don't know how much time you would deduct for those other pieces. So,
Yeah, it's debatable. Definitely, I've thought about it. But honestly, that's not a good time for a reload, anyways, because I'm at 5 yards. I would say a more accurate time would be at 10 yards when you're actually shooting like an El Presidente or maybe like a Blake drill, like a double Blake drill or something to that effect. My reloads usually aren't blazingly fast. I'm generally around maybe 1.1, something like that. If I'm like shooting an El Pres or 1.2, somewhere in there, because you want to. Yeah, and that's the other thing. And I think I learned that over the years is you don't have to be the fastest guy during a classifier. You just have to be consistent, right? And that's what GMs are. They're consistent all the time. And they can pull those off on demand all the time. And they're always consistent, but it's fast enough to get to be a GM, right? You don't have to be the
right.
fastest guy. And I think too many times we get up to a classifier and it's zero or hero. Well, now you can't do that in USPSA because you get destroyed for it. So
I like that. I like that change.
I don't like that change, David. So
Oh, that's funny. All right. I want to shift gear. Well, no, let me before we shift gears. So Now you've been shooting for 5, 6 years, coming
Mhm,
up on 6 years.
mhm.
What is your plan for, like, how far do you want to go in the sport? How much better do you want to be?
So I want to make GM. That's my probably my initial goal, and I think I can do it this year. The last couple of years, I haven't been healthy. So last summer, I was making some really good progress, and I felt like I was on the cusp of getting to master. And then my knee was just, I had to shut it down. The pain was just too bad. And then the
Mm.
year before, and I tell everybody about this. It's not a secret. I have Crohn's disease, so that's a lifelong illness. I struggle with it. Last couple of years, it's been a struggle, but I finally have that under control. So I just feel like if I can get this knee healthy this year, get my movement back, I feel like I'm in a much better mental place this year with my mental game. I feel like I have the skills to get to that GM level. I feel like I can make it, and that's kind of where I want to get, and just kind of see where it goes from there. So, do I want to be nationally ranked or anything like that? No, that's not really my. I just want to get really good at shooting, and I still use it to this day because I still am active in the security field. So I feel like as long as I'm going to be carrying a gun, I need to be very proficient at carrying a gun and using a gun if worst case scenario happens. So, and plus I love to shoot, so it's just kind of my passion. So
So you want to get your skill level to GM is basically
I
what
do,
I'm hearing.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of like the pinnacle. So I just want to get there and
Right.
just have that to my name and just say, "Hey, I've accomplished this." So and see what happens from there.
Do
So
you shoot any other pistol sports?
I don't. I'm probably going to start shooting two gun a lot more this year too. So that was my plan last year, but there's generally more movement involved in two gun, and honestly, two gun never really
Mhm.
caught on. It's not. So I'd have to go up into North Carolina to shoot two gun because it's not popular here in South Carolina. But honestly, I thought that sport would kind of catch on after three gun kind of pretty much disappeared, but it never really has, which is it's crazy to me because everybody has a rifle and a pistol these days. So
Have you been following along with PCSL and that?
I have, but we just don't have it here on the southeast. There's every once in a while you'll see a match here, but they're just few and far between. I wish it would catch on more, but they just don't have them here. And the one thing
Yeah.
about South Carolina is I will say not probably the upstate is better, but there's not a lot of matches in this region around here. There's just not. Like that's the one thing I miss about Virginia is I would go down into North Carolina all the time. And as you know, and Fredericksburg is a meat grinder. You have to temper your expectations when you shoot there. There's a lot of good GMs that shoot at Fredericksburg. There's just a lot of good GMs in the DC metro area, which is crazy because it's not a big gun culture, but there's a ton of good GMs, and there's a ton of good GMs in North Carolina, and we just don't have that competition in South Carolina. And then
Yeah,
I'll
Fredericksburg was kind of like that sweet spot where you would get people from North Carolina that would come up.
yep.
You'd get people from Pennsylvania that could come down. So you had a wide swath of GMs, and you had Todd Jarrett and Dave Wampler and other people. So yeah,
Yeah,
it drew from a wide area.
I used to shoot there, Richmond, True North,
Hmm.
Sir Walter, Pitt County. That was kind of my rotation. And then I would every once in a while go to Quantico, things of that nature. So, but I miss those matches up there. I really do miss them. I don't even, does Quantico even have USPSA anymore?
I believe they're starting them back up.
Okay.
The guy who was running them, those guys, you get orders, you get transferred. So that's where that issue comes into play there. So there hasn't really been any consistency lately because of that.
Okay.
But I think they're looking to start that back up. But PCSL seems to be picking up speed on the East Coast. I'm starting to see more and more matches. They have their GOAT match in April near Pensacola.
Okay.
So it's picking up steam. I think there's a couple in North Carolina. I'd have to go back and look, but it looks like it's growing. And I like the way Max Leograndis has worked it where it's been a slow growth, not a rapid growth. So the changes have been palatable and people can understand it.
Hmm.
So it's been And him being a high level competitor that he is,
Right.
it's built on that as well, that knowledge of competition and what you're looking for in a sport. So I think it will catch on. It's just more out west right now and then moving east.
I just feel like USPSA, like I don't try to get involved in the politics of the sport, but it just makes no sense to me. Every year our dues go up, and it's run like the Democratic Party. It's like it's bankrupt every year. Like they have no money, and our membership is through the roof right now. And there's just seems like there's never any money. I don't know what they do with all the money in USPSA. So
I think that part is getting better, as well as the transparency with that, with the new guys. So I was just watching um, the board meeting last night, and it seemed pretty positive in that everything's in the black right now. So that's good.
that's good. That's finally good. Yes, because
Yeah.
our dues go up every year, and you're just like, where is all the money? And participation is through the roof right now.
Well, I think part of the problem was too, in 2020, they had 5 nationals. In 2022, they had 4 nationals. And I think that's excessive.
Yes.
And that's not counting multi-gun, which they farm out, which I do like. That's not including IPSC nationals, which is instead of farmed out, I'll say contracted out, which I think is also good. And recently they've gotten it down to a much better number. I think they could even, to be honest with you, contract out PCC and have that as standalone because it's
Probably.
rifle, not pistol,
Yeah.
and then just do pistol nationals.
Yeah.
But
It would make
they're,
sense.
yeah. So I think they're trying to do some stuff. It was promising listening to the board meeting last night. I mean, you take everything with a grain of salt, but
Right.
there were, there's 3 new board members. So, I always try to give them the benefit of the doubt until I don't.
Right. We'll see. Hopefully it's positive. Because right now, like I remember a couple years ago, you could sign up for a match like literally like the day before. Now you can't do that anymore. You have to sign up a week ahead of time because their matches get filled up like a week out. That hasn't happened in years.
Well, yeah, like I had my alarm set for 8:50 last night. So when Fredericksburg opened up at 9, I'd be ready to hit the
Mhm.
button. And I got on there and it said, match canceled due to range conditions because
Ah,
of all the nasty weather. I was like, no.
ah, yeah.
So, and
Yes.
unusually odd, like I don't think I've seen this happen before,
Fredericksburg never
but
cancels. Yeah.
but Richmond is the same weekend. So, and I didn't realize that.
Oh,
So I was
wow.
like, oh, when is Cavalier? And I went in and looked, and I'm like, same weekend, and it's already full. I'm like, well, poop.
I miss Cavalier. I used to shoot there. That was my home range when I lived in Richmond. I missed that match. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did too.
Yeah. I'm probably going to
Chris
dip
and
my
Tess.
toes up there a couple times this year. I want to. So last summer, I dipped my toes back into Pitt County. That was always my favorite. I went back up there like in I want to say it was July or August. Shot that match. It was 100 degrees. That was actually
Oof.
101. That was probably the hottest match I ever shot. But I'm probably going to get back up there this summer. I'm probably going to get back to Cavalier. I miss those places. Miss the shooters up there too.
Well,
So
if you make it up to Cavalier, shoot me a message. I'll make
definitely
a.
will.
I'll go down there even if I'm not shooting,
Cool, man.
just to at least meet up, say hello, and
Yeah. Yeah, I like
so
that
yeah,
place.
I like Chris and Tess. They're good people. So just even going down there to say hello to them, I'm good with.
And it's a nice match because it's not long, but it's very well thought out, and it moves, and it's not
Yeah,
a yeah, it's not a big
I
logistical.
like I like how they've incorporated that other big bay now.
So I left right before that happened, and everybody tells me
Mm.
that now. Yeah. So
Well,
yep.
I just shot. Was it? I think it was January actually. February, the weather was terrible. All the ranges were closed because of ice and
Oh
snow.
wow.
Because we had a layer of ice, then like
Oh,
anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of snow, and then another layer of ice. So it literally took me days to clear out my driveway, and I'd have to do it piece by piece because it was literally like chopping through an iceberg. It was
oh,
ridiculous. Yeah, I got enough to get a vehicle out, and then I would slowly work on the rest of the driveway
God, I don't.
using using the sun, and then because the temperatures were still cold, but with the sun, at least it would start to loosen it up a little bit. But yeah, it was January I was there, and they're typically, a 5-stage match, but now they're 6.
Hmm.
And that one big bay, it's a big bay. Like it's
Yeah.
what, 50 yards wide
Oh,
by
yeah.
50 yards. It's big. And so it's a nice field course. You definitely get some movement in.
Yeah, because
And then me, I'm like gimping.
most of the bays are so narrow that they're pretty much burner stages. So you kind of knew what you were getting when you went there. So yeah.
Yeah, Chris would have to use a bunch of walls and partials and stuff to kind of slow you down a little bit. So, but yeah. All right, now I want to shift a little bit.
Okay.
As I said privately, you have a Substack.
I do.
Now this is very interesting. You've got a lot of damn subscribers too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm starting to. Yeah.
Um, but it is a very interesting Substack. I'm actually going to open up a different window for it because I'm actually in the middle of reading something you have, and I don't want to lose my place because there's not like I can put a marker and say come back to here. Now, number one, what made you decide to do a Substack? Well, number one, explain to people what Substack is, and number two, why did you start it?
So Substack is, I don't know if I can do it justice, but it's an alternative social media platform that just came out not too long ago, and it basically does not censor anything. And it's basically for people that want to write articles, stories. I write short fictional stories, and they will not censor anything. Whereas there's other platforms that are similar, but they will censor pretty much everything. You can write anything you want on Substack, and there's nobody censors it. And I don't even think there's a limit as far as words that you're allowed, because I think my last short story actually was more of a novelette. I want to say it was over 10,000 words. I want to say it was close to 11,000 words. So it's unlimited, and a lot of people are starting to turn to it. It's actually getting very popular. There's a lot of every day I get on there, I see more and more national media people that are getting
Yes.
Substack pages, and you can
Well,
do live videos on it. I mean, it's actually a very good platform. So I started with it, I want to say last summer. I was at the beach on vacation. Actually, I'm always working, Dave. Like I never stop working. Like my mind just is always like
yes.
it's going a million miles an hour constantly.
Let me pause you right there because I just had a conversation about this. I had been these numbers that I have been posting recently. I created I was trying to I created a spreadsheet, but I didn't know how I wanted to format some stuff. My dog woke me up at 1 a.m. to go outside. So we go back to bed and I'm laying there, and literally at 2 o'clock, I wake up and I had the format. So
Yep.
I get up at 2 o'clock from like 2:30 because I made some coffee. I went and I sat down at the computer,
All over them.
and for the next 10 hours,
Wow.
that's all I did. But my whole point here was that is exactly how I am. It's like it never shuts off.
Yep. I have some of my
Sorry,
best
continue.
thoughts in the middle of the night. I'll wake up and start working on my phone and grab my computer. But I'm always doing something. And I thought when I retired, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to take all the knowledge that I had from my government career and kind of leverage that knowledge and to help people in some way, shape, or form. So I was like, okay, so I took my background and my experience with terrorism. And I'm like, okay, we know that there's probably going to be another attack here in the U.S. It's it's going to happen. It's just when does it happen? So how do I convey that information to people? How to get prepared for the worst possible day alive, and basically get people in that mindset and start to think about where they're going, how they plan ahead of time when they go there. And that's pretty much all I do. And all my articles, not all of them, but a lot of them are shaped in that manner to get people to think outside the box. I mean, I also put some stuff on there about world politics and about world leaders, but it all kind of has a nexus to terrorism or active shooter events or things of that nature. So I kind of leverage all of my background and my work history, and I kind of take that information and put it into layman's terms for the average person who's never been in combat or been overseas to understand what are the realities that we face potentially here in the US. Like they don't understand the violence that is potentially going to be unleashed if we get attacked here again in the US. And I just try to make people understand that. And I get emails and DMs all the time. People are like, "Hey, I really appreciate what you're doing," and so it seems to be resonating with people. And I just kind of keep going down that road, and it kind of led me into writing these short stories because I'm like, how can I convey this in something that's enjoyable for people to read, but also that is brutally honest. And that's why I don't, when I write, I have a very dark way of writing because I don't believe in like moral victories. I just want to give the information in the most brutal, honest way I can. And for people to take that and just have a moment after they're done reading and be like, holy crap, what did I just read? Like that really hit home to me. And that's why I kind of do what I do. So I hope it's working. So,
Okay. And it's interesting because this makes me go back to what you were saying earlier. You'd rather have someone who can shoot good than someone who knows tactics,
yep.
because in the stuff that you post, those skills are what will matter.
Yep.
Now, it's interesting because I once went on a business trip and I carried.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who was rooming with me was also my supervisor, who didn't carry and is not a gun person at all.
Mm-hmm.
But he was okay with me
Mm-hmm.
carrying. We actually went down to Orlando, Florida for a conference, and I carried at the conference. Nobody knew, obviously, I didn't advertise. But my point was that he asked me a question. He said, "So, what are you going to do if you're," and we'll just use Lowe's. If you're in, I think he may have said Lowe's or Home Depot. If you're in there and a guy comes in with a gun, and I said, "Well, number one, I'm going to get my family out of there." Because he's like, "With your family." I said, "Number one, I'm going to get my family out of there to safety." And then, I said, then the rest of it, I don't know. It depends on the situation. I can't give
True.
you, I don't know. And he said, "Dave, of all the people I've asked, you the only person who said you would get your family out of there. Everybody else said they were going after the shooter." I'm
Yep.
like, "Well, they're probably committing suicide
Yes,
because they
absolutely.
don't know the situation." So, but I feel like that's what they learned from video games, is like, oh, just go out. You know what I mean? Like,
Wrong
because
answer.
that's the strategy they use in video games. And I'm like, that doesn't work in real life. That gets you killed.
Yep, and you've seen it by being a paramedic. I mean, as a first responder, if I would go charging into middle of the unknown, even if I called 911 and gave a full description of myself, the responding officers aren't going to listen to that. When they're stressed, their heartbeat is going to be at 180 beats per minute when they run in there. If they
Right.
see a guy with a gun, they're taking a shot. It's plain and simple.
100%.
Yeah, and like, so it's funny. Someone just gave me this scenario a couple weeks ago, the exact same scenario, and I'd said the same thing: get my family out of there. It depends. If there was a guy that was right in front of me with a gun, yeah, then I'll probably challenge him, right? Because he's right
Right.
there, and it's a situation that I can somewhat control. But I'm not going to go hunting for a guy halfway across the freaking grocery store. That's a recipe for disaster. I'm going to end up dead. The only person that's going to lose that is going to be me. Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I want people to be able to think about these things. And that's why I always preach. I'm like, look, before you go out in public, you should always have some type of a game plan. Whether you're going to a concert, an event, just look at the place online. Just figure out where the exits are at. Figure out where like a hard room is. Just things of that nature, like where you're going to go to, like if something happens, how you're going to get out of there. What is going to be your egress point? And people are like, yeah, we never really think about those things. I'm like, it only takes 5 minutes. I was like, how much time is your life worth? And that's what I try to preach to people. And I think it's kind of resonating. So,
I, I would even say something people never think about, but sitting in a booth. How are
mhm,
you going to get out of that booth in a timely fashion? Like me, especially with my knee, where if my wife and I or my sons and I go out to eat, whatever, now I even strategize how I'm sitting and where I'm sitting so that I can get out if I need to.
it's true.
So I think it's little things that people don't think about that's going to get them hemmed up in ways that
True.
they have no concept.
And then even on my short stories that I write, at the end, I'll put an AAR at the end, and I'll be like, "Look, these were the things that happened, and these are the things that you can do, like get stop the bleed training, get basic first aid training, things of that nature. Like these are things that are available in your community. Learn how to basically learn how to notice things that are basically outside of what the norm is. Learn a little bit about situational awareness, things of those nature, and I kind of go down the list." We haven't talked. I haven't gotten into EDC yet. I think we're eventually going to get there, and I'll probably do a video eventually. But we haven't gotten to that point. But I'm just trying to get people into that right mindset and thinking outside the box. I'm not a prepper, so that's not my lane. People are like, "Oh, how much water should I have? What should?" I'm like, "Look, that's not my thing. Like, you can. There's places where you can find that, but that's just not my. That's not my thing." So
I am not either. I'm not a prepper either. So, I mean, I've done a lot of military hiking, if you know what I mean,
right.
around the world. So I understand all of that. I understand mission prep, mission planning. I know all of that, but I am not a prepper.
Although here in Charleston, you always have to be somewhat prepared because of hurricanes. So
Yes.
we always keep extra water, in store and some food items and things like that. But I'm not a prepper. I just have some extra items if I need them.
But
So
I think people who live in Alaska do the same thing because of the weather. So, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't consider you a prepper in South Carolina prepping for a hurricane. And I don't consider people in Alaska who live under 12 feet of
right.
snow preppers either.
although
That's
the
just
average
normal everyday living
although the average Charlestonian doesn't do anything, they wait until like 12 hours before, then they go to the grocery store. That's what they
with
do.
everybody else.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's how they
The,
roll down here.
yeah,
Yeah,
the entire 12,000, person community is arriving at the store at the
right.
same time. Yeah. I'm okay.
Sorry.
I was familiar with Substack because, like you said, there are legitimate investigative reporters
Mm-hmm.
who use Substack because they've been censored other
They
places.
have been.
Um, but I had not really looked, and now I'm seeing that there's literally like on your Ryan's Substack, and I don't know what that orange shaped football shaped icon is, or if that's just a generic icon.
It's a generic icon. Yeah.
Okay. So it's Ryan apostrophe S space Substack. Um, I didn't know under notes you actually have, like video stuff.
Yeah, I have. I think I posted my shooting video there, and I may have done a couple other
You've done some
videos.
stuff with that latest writing as well.
Yeah, I have. I put an AAR up there for that my latest novelette. I kind of did that for my paid subscribers, so they can basically they feel like they're getting their money's worth. So I did that. I just recently turned on my paid subscriptions. So I've been getting people pledging me money, and I'm like, I guess might as well. This has been going on for 6 months. I'm like, I guess I should just turn it on. And it's amazing how many people have actually pledged me money to keep writing. So I'm like, hey, that's kind of a nice surprise.
Well, and there's a subscriber chat, which is interesting
Yeah,
too. So,
yeah.
okay.
I think eventually I'll probably do something with it. I'll probably, for my paid subscribers, I'll eventually do some videos and some maybe like question and answers, things of that nature. I just don't want to I got to be careful though, because I don't want to get off into where like legalities are involved. But,
Into the weeds. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, I just don't want to, but, general item things like, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like this is the best platform to help people that are in my situation, and that's kind of what I wanted to do when I wanted to when I retired. I wanted to be able to help people and just leverage all my information that I learned over the years from the government and kind of give that back to people. So,
So, one of the reasons I wanted to ask you the question about your favorite book is because of your Substack. I have made the claim, and I stand behind it. Even if I'm wrong, I still stand behind my wrong claim, that if you read a lot, it makes you a better writer.
I would say,
Because,
yeah.
okay, where did you learn to write? Was it through reading the Jack Cars and these others? The
Yeah,
Vince Flynn's?
I would say through that, and because now I can kind of visualize. Like
Right.
I'm not a formal writer. I just write whatever comes to my mind, and but I can kind of visualize what I want to say from reading so many books. Can kind of put it in that format. The other thing is, I learned nothing in college except how to write. That's the only thing I learned in college. I wrote a lot in college. And I think that's the one skill that I could take away from college that was actually like, okay, it was worth the money because I learned how to do this. And through your career at the State Department, you write a lot as well. When you're overseas, you're always writing spot reports. You're always writing. You write a lot in your career at the State Department. It's a very writing centric organization. So I've done that a lot throughout my career. So I just kind of put it all together and just here it is now. It's out there. It's in the ether. So, and the last story that I came out with, I would actually like to develop that eventually into a novel. I just don't right now. I just don't have the time to dedicate to it. But I would like to probably maybe get 90,000 words out of it and put it into a novel. And that's kind of my plan. So, and maybe it'll happen this year, maybe it won't. But I'd like to take that idea, make that um, when the wolves come, or excuse me, where the wolves feed, because the first one was when the wolves come, where the wolves feed, kind of take that as the backbone of the story and just expand it. So,
All right. Now I've written thousands of EMS reports, and I've been told that they read like stories. But again, I go back to my youth and
mhm,
all up until I was mid 20s, mid early 30s,
mhm.
I read a lot. Um, and I think that has really shaped my writing, but it's an art. It's not, you can write those other reports like I did as well, but a lot of that is more technical writing.
Yes.
Like I once created, so I was once out of the military and was teaching rifle. And actually I actually designed a thumb hole stock for a rifle.
Oh, wow.
And I was putting the Mark IV, Leopold Mark IV scope on there, which I loved and I still love today. But I thought their user manual was absolutely horrid. So I made my own.
Oh, wow.
And I literally took the scope, measured everything in millimeters. And back in the day, there was a word program called Word Perfect.
Hmm.
And I think it was Corel. I don't remember who made. I don't remember, but it was Word Perfect. And by using the arrow keys, you would move your cursor one place, and every cursor move was 1 millimeter. So I literally made this scope. I redrew the scope in Word Perfect
That's great.
to the exact. It took me like a month to do this manual because every day for hours I would be tapping
Wow.
on the thing, drawing this scope out. Everything was absolutely perfect. And then it was like the user manual is like, what would I want in this user manual to understand this thing, to make it work and explain it to people? And there were some people who saw it from Leopold was like, wow, this thing's freaking amazing.
Wow.
But that's completely different than what you're doing here. And I'm actually working on a historical fiction book,
Okay.
which is again, it's
Mhm.
creative writing, which is different. So it also requires a desire to write like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you always wanted to like write short stories, longer format stories?
Not really. It just kind of like came together like in the last couple of years. I thought about it like when I was towards the end of my career, but I just never really put pen to paper. And I just started just something. Honestly, I just started doing it like in the fall. I think I released my first short story. I want to say it was. I don't know if I had it written. No, I wrote it right after my surgery. And then I wrote the second one. I was like, okay, I'm done. That was a lot of work. And I was like, I'm done for a while. And then I took like a week off and I went back to the next one. I think I released that one right before Christmas. And then for the last couple of months, I did a lot of research on this one. because it takes place in Savannah. So I actually went down there for a night trip, walked basically all the sites, did everything, kind of like a site survey for a protection detail. I did everything
Hmm.
and then just started writing it. And I just got done with it 2 weeks ago. And I think I released it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it just kind of happened this year. It's kind of weird. Yeah. I never really thought about it until like the last couple of years, but it just all kind of manifested itself last year, at the end of last year. So
I had been to Savannah, so when I was reading it, I could visualize what you were talking
and
about.
that's exactly what I wanted to portray in that story. I just didn't want to make it a violent story. I wanted to capture the essence of Savannah, the smells, the sounds, the sights, the cobblestones. I kind of wanted to capture that because Savannah is a mystical place, anyways. But I kind of wanted to capture that mystique in the story, and I think I did a decent job of doing that. So, but
Yeah,
I would
it was
love to
really good.
capitalize on that story and make it something bigger. And I know I can. I already have a blueprint of where I want to take it. But I just got to basically sit down and devote the time to it. But it just may not happen for a little while. So,
So I assume all your writings will be similar in that it will be these same similar topics that you have in your Substack.
yeah, I mean, so I don't know how much you follow about if you heard anything about like the new 9/11 homeland plot on our country. I mean, I don't know how much you follow that, but there's a lot of people. It's not speculation. Look, we know there's tens of thousands of terrorists within our borders right now. I'm not
Right.
going to get into the whole politics of how they got here, whatever, but they are here and they're waiting. They're basically waiting to attack us. A lot of people thought that the attack would have happened by now, but a lot of people think it's going to happen this year. So this is all basically all of these stories are based off of that plot, essentially.
Mm.
And I'm trying to get people, so there's a message to be conveyed at the end of these stories, is these are the things that you need to do to be prepared for this if it happens. I always tell people, be prepared for your absolute worst day that you could ever imagine, and prepare for that. And that's where you mentally need to get yourself to prepare for that, to survive your worst day and to thrive. And that's
And
where I'm
then
at. Yeah.
understand that it's going to be worse than that.
Right. Right.
Because
So,
you can't, if you haven't seen it, you can't imagine that, you know?
and that's everything that I write about is like, look, most people have never been face to face with a terrorist overseas. I have. I see how they are. Like they just the hatred, that level of hatred, and it's something that you can't describe. But I try to portray that in some of my articles, and I think it's hit home with a lot of people because they're like, look, we don't think about those things. And honestly, most Americans, they just get through their daily life, like taking their kids to soccer practice or whatever, going to the grocery store. They don't think about those type of things. So I get a lot of DMs for like some just soccer moms. They're like, "Wow, I never knew like things were like this." I'm like, "Yes, this is how the real world works. These are the things that we've seen overseas, but we're going to be seeing them here very soon." So just FYI.
And I 100% agree with you.
Yes,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately, it's just
Now,
the way.
you did write something that I wanted to ask you about. Um, you said one of the things to be aware of is organized retail theft tied to broader trafficking trends. That's the one I was like, what exactly is he talking about here?
Basically just a breakdown of society. So you're going to see. So we know that the cartel is embedded in every city in this country. And now we are actually assisting, since they started this new interagency task force, we are now basically treating the cartels as an international terrorist organization. So that opened up the floodgates to intelligence sharing. Now the CIA, NSA, all of our three-lettered agencies are involved. Probably soon even JSOC if they're not already involved. I don't have any inside knowledge on that, but I would assume that they're already involved. What I'm basically telling people is you're going to see, if you start seeing spikes of crime spikes in basically in your area, that's going to be a symptom of things to come. So, for instance, here in Charleston, we know that the cartel runs the whole drug trade in this town. There's nothing that comes or goes out of this city without the cartel knowing about it. And basically, what I'm telling people is just to look out for crime trends. If you see crime trends rise, that's probably a symptom of something that's going to follow soon. And you're starting to see that in Mexico right now, right? They're right now they're looting everything. They're going out. They're setting everything on fire. And Mexico's in chaos right now. Probably will calm down here shortly because the military is actually doing a really good job of quelling all this right now, which kind of begs the question: why is Mexico so corrupt if the government can take care of this? They just never wanted to take care of it. It was just never on the radar. They're actually doing a pretty good job of kind of kicking the crap out of the cartel right now. But these things, if we keep poking the bear, which that's a whole nother story. I think we should because fentanyl is right on our border and it's killing Americans. You've seen it as a paramedic. I don't know how many times you've had to push Narcan to people. And people don't realize the cartels are also way more violent. They make ISIS look like child's play. They're way more violent. And they are also responsible for facilitating tens tens of thousands of terrorists into this country and getting them across the border. People don't realize that as well. I mean, the cartel will money talks to them. They don't have a conscience. So we had all these foreign terrorists that came over, that came up through the Darien Gap through Mexico and paid the cartels to use their smuggling routes. And they basically infiltrated them into the US and now they're embedded in all of our major cities. So that's basically what I was just trying to get out. Like look for crime spikes in your neighborhood. Look for out for excess, violence, basically narcotics, things of that nature. Just be on the lookout for things like that because those are going to be telltale signs that things are going to probably be happening in your area soon, sooner than later. So
I feel like not all of that data makes it into the news, though. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and that's the
Especially
other
if they think it's tied to something bigger.
and that's the thing that I that's why I like Substack because it doesn't censor what I'm talking about. And if you get on other social media platforms, like I've been censored a lot on X, which is crazy. I feel like actually my X account gets suppressed all the time, which is you would think since Elon Musk took it over, it's just as bad as it ever was. My account gets suppressed all the time on X. I know some people that can't even push it out in information on X. I've been suppressed on Instagram as well because a lot of times I'll put links to my stories on Instagram and they end up getting suppressed. So, but I feel like Substack is like one of the only pure platforms we have left, and that's why I think a lot of people are starting to migrate towards it. So
I think there's still a lot of people embedded in X that is the problem because
that is the
like
problem.
I was just having a private chat the other day with Andreas Yankopoulos, who's in Georgia, so not far from you.
Hmm.
And I never see his stuff on X. And if you look at my feed, it's never the stuff that I interact with. It's all this liberal crap,
Yep.
you know, liberal politicians in my feed. And I'm like, block,
Yep.
or,
Right.
disregard, whatever it is. But I'm like, why is it never the stuff that I'm following and want to see? It's like, this is
Yep.
ridiculous.
Yeah. The algorithm is very weird on X. Like I can sometimes I'll post things and I'll get 40,000 views, and then the other time I'll post something and get like 200. It's the weirdest. There's
Yeah.
just no rhyme or reason. I have noticed though, there's a lot of shooters starting to move over to X. That's been the latest trend I've seen.
Good.
There's a lot of shooters coming. The shooting community, I think, is kind of done with Instagram, and they're looking for an alternative, and they're starting to move to X. I've noticed that a lot in the last couple months. But I'm
Well,
not
and
probably the best.
Andreas and I, that's one of the things we had been saying back then was like, we both had X accounts, but we're like, why won't people get off? You couldn't move off of Instagram because nobody wanted to leave it.
Instagram is for instant feedback, instant gratification. Like people don't. If you have anything that you want people to really sit down and read, Instagram is not the platform for it.
Right.
People just want to click on videos on Instagram. That's all it does. Like when I put out a story and I put a link on an Instagram story, people don't even look at it. I have to basically post everything on X. And honestly, X is how I've gotten probably most of my viewers and subscribers on Substack. They'll see my stuff on X and then I link it to Substack and then they go from there. So
Well, that's the other thing about Instagram. It's like they don't want you to leave their app, their platform, so you can't just put a link in the comments. You know what I mean? Like you can't put a clickable link in there.
And LinkedIn is that's a whole nother ball of wax. I have an account there, but I'm frustrated with LinkedIn, and I honestly I try not even to put anything on there anymore. It's and a lot of people use it as social media, and it wasn't even intended to be social media.
It's
But a lot
more
of
of a
people,
networking
yeah,
site.
yeah. But a lot of people are using it as social media these days, so which is weird to me.
Yeah, it is weird. I didn't realize Substack had all that other stuff on there, like the chats and
It's
the
phenomenal.
other stuff. Yeah, I had no idea. I had gone to Substack because I had, the investigative reporter stuff. Like I am. Here's one for you. I guess you could say I've been anti-authority my whole life, too. It's weird how we work for the government and we're anti-authority
Right.
people, but
Yeah.
but I've also not won a lot of people over because there are times where I don't know when to shut my mouth.
That
And,
sounds
and I'll
great.
just I'll just I'll just express my my beliefs and my opinion, but um, I have had a couple of jobs lately that were rescinded because I wouldn't take certain vaccines. And I'm like, look,
Gotcha.
I haven't taken a vaccine in, as a matter of fact, when I got medically retired at Prince William County, one of the jobs I had applied for and they were offering me a position, they were like, we need your vaccine record. I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know what they have. So I reached out to our employee health and they're like, we don't have a vaccine record for you because you didn't take any vaccines. And I was like, that's what I thought, but I figured I'd ask. So, when they found that out, they're like, rescinded. We're not
Mhm.
giving you the job. But my point is that I've been on Substack because of the studies that are hard to find other places you can
Yes.
find on Substack that show all the harm, not just to kids, not just to infants, but to adults and other people. You can find all that stuff on Substack with the data to show that this stuff is harmful,
Yep.
which is why I don't freaking do it.
It's funny. I just had this conversation with a doctor, a physician friend of mine, and he's like, "Did you notice your Crohn's disease?" So basically, the government coerced us to get the COVID. So I was one of the first people to get the COVID vaccine when it came
Mm-hmm.
out. So the government got it in January of what was that, 2020?
2020.
Yes. And they basically said, if you do not get this shot, you will lose your job. So they
Right.
basically told us so I had it at the time I was living in Richmond. I had to drive all the way up to our medical clinic in Washington, D.C., get the shot, and then I had to have the second one. And this doctor I was just having a conversation with, he's like, "Did you notice your autoimmune disease got worse after those injections?" And I said, "Yes." He's like, "There is now direct evidence that shows that." And he's like, "There is all this evidence now that basically shows that the vaccine was like the worst thing in the world. And it still to this day is being suppressed. You can't,
There
yes.
when 9/11 hit, there was a major in the army who was also he wasn't a paramedic, but he was a medic. And he had to get certain shots to go overseas. And next thing you know, he has Guillain-Barré. So, he's basically he had to walk with a cane, took him forever to recover. I don't know. I lost track of him at one point, so I don't know if he ended up getting medically retired as well or what. But there's a lot more issues with that stuff than they ever want to let on. And
Absolutely.
I have not been sick since I stopped taking vaccines when I got out of the Air National Guard. When I got out of the Air National Guard, I was like, the military no longer has purview over what I do. I stopped taking all vaccines completely. And like my wife has been sick for a week. Not bad, but just lingering
Mhm.
stuff, cough and whatnot. Zero. I have zero um, symptoms during COVID. Now this is where I think I threw some people for a loop at my work. I didn't wear gloves. I didn't wear a mask unless I was told that. There were only a few times where people were bold enough to tell me that I had to wear a mask going into somebody's house. So, known COVID patients, I didn't wear a mask. Even though we had P100s we were supposed to wear, I didn't do it. I didn't gown up. I don't wear gloves. I didn't get sick.
Interesting.
So
Now we know all
I,
that stuff was BS anyways, you know?
well, we do, but at the same time, it's like this stuff is actually, I don't use hand sanitizer and I don't use antibacterial hand wash. I use regular soap and water, and that is it. And it is what it is.
Yep. Yeah, now we know all the social distancing, the N95 masks, it was all made up. And
Yeah.
to this day, you still can't talk about it. And if you do, you get suppressed. And I just wish more information would come out because my wife and we will never do another vaccine ever again. So just what we believe in, and we're not going to do it. And honestly, I didn't get COVID until I became vaccinated. So those vaccines are always a year or two behind with the strains. So they're they're they're,
Right.
they're useless. So
In my passive aggressive ways now on Instagram, when I come across a new study that shows how harmful this stuff is, I'll repost it on my personal Instagram page and tag those two companies every single time.
they made a hell of a
So,
lot of money. Yeah, they sure did. Yeah.
and I just heard that they have finally stopped subsidizing doctors for making people get shots. And I'm like, that's a huge first step. If that's true, I've got to go back and, do
I
some
haven't heard that.
research.
Yeah, I need to research
But
that.
I just heard that I want to say Robert Malone was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he's the one who said that they have finally stopped reimbursing stop paying doctors for having their practices, they
Wow.
used to pay them a certain amount of extra money a year. Like one pediatrician said she made $1.5 million one year
Wow.
just due to all the money that she got for having her practice vaccinated, like all of her patients.
That is insane.
It is insane. And Robert Malone just said that that practice has stopped. They have stopped that practice.
Wow.
So if that's true, that's a huge first step. So, because now they're not going to be pushing it as much either.
Yep. True.
So,
Yep.
I have hope that eventually it'll all come out. I have zero hope that anybody will be held accountable, but
Yes.
if we
Nobody
can at
ever
least
will.
get to that point where parents don't have to be pressured into getting their kids vaccinated, and they can, if they decide to do it on their own, that's on them. I do.
I have to say that was kind of the final draw for us with Virginia. And we were there obviously during COVID, and that was just smothering what Virginia did to its citizens back then. And that was the final draw. And we had the chance to move to Richmond right after that. Richmond was way better with COVID than Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia was awful. I mean, you couldn't. The only place you could go were the grocery store. That was it. That's it. Everything was shut
Right.
down. And then as soon as we came, so we were, I think it was probably a couple weeks later because I think South Carolina was only locked down for about 2 weeks. And then we were like, hey, let's take a trip to South Carolina. And we came down here. It's like COVID never even existed. So at the time, my wife was a nurse. She was working at Reston Hospital, and she was used to gowning up every day with the N95 because they mandated it. And we came down to Charleston, and we're at a bar, and there was like 100 people just standing at this bar. And I looked at my wife, and she's standing back there like this, and I was like, "Are you uncomfortable?" She's like, "A little bit," because she was so used to being like gowned up
Right.
with a full Monty on, and she's like, "I'll be fine though." But but COVID never existed down here, so same with Florida.
Right. Yeah. Well, it didn't. It only existed in California for the people, not not the politicians. So,
It's true. Yeah.
oh, that's funny and true. Well, we have definitely covered a lot of topics. There was one. We'll see if we leave it in the podcast. But I have always been a proponent of armed first responders, like myself as a paramedic. I've been into plenty of houses where I wish I had been armed.
Yes.
So just in case something had happened. Now, for the record, nothing ever did happen, but I've been in situations. There was one situation where the police wouldn't come in. They were outside in the yard. They had their rifles. They didn't have their pistols drawn. They had their rifles.
Wow.
And there was a patient, and then there was in the back of the house, there was what I would call a mob of people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the patient was in between the mob in the back of the house and the
Mm-hmm.
police at the front door. And yours truly had to go in. And when I walked in, immediately I assessed the situation and I turned to the person working with him like, get the stretcher because we need to get out of here now. We can't do anything here because it's too unsafe. Picked up the guy, threw him on the stretcher, and got him out. And I did everything outside. But so I've always been a proponent of being armed, like, and concealed
Mm-hmm.
as a first responder. And I've also been a big proponent of teachers being armed. Again, concealed, not open carry, and optional as well, for both fields being optional for those that would feel comfortable doing it and get the training necessary. Like I know a guy who was one of the guys who started the podcast with me, who's now a teacher, and I'm like, he knows how to handle weapons, he knows how to shoot. He would be the perfect person to be in a school and be armed. But what are your thoughts on that?
I would say yes, and I'll tell you why. If it's done, if the government can stay out of the way and let if we could find a way to implement this where the government can stay out of the way and we can do it in a common sense way, in a common sense manner, where we actually have policies that make sense. You have a use of force policy that it has to be so it would have to be very strict on what your rules of engagement were and when you would employ it. I mean, everything needs to be down to the letter of the law. I would say yes, because that situation you just described, that's what we call a clue in the law enforcement arena when you have police officers with their rifles out, but yet they're sending in a first responder to go in there and administer medical treatment to an individual, but yet the cops are standing outside with their rifles at a low ready. That situation should never happen. You should not be put into those type of situations. And I think if it was implemented in the right manner and there was some type of an independent board that was formed, it could work. But the problem is you know as well as I do that the government always gets involved, and the federal government, the state government would be involved, the federal government would be involved, and then it would end up being an absolute disaster.
Right.
If there was a way we could keep the government out of it and it was just mandated to those individual school districts, to those individual fire and EMS services, I think it could work if they were able to implement their own policies, their own training, things of that nature. If they paid for their own instructors, I think it could work. And honestly, I would want to see our first responders protected because some of the situations that you go into, I would say they're worse because you're unarmed and you're going in, you're dealing with patients that God only knows are hopped up on what you don't know. And a lot of times, I don't honestly, I don't even know why the police let you go into that situation. They should have been like, no, we're going in with you. But you probably have been in a million places like that your whole career. At least when I go into a situation, I'm armed. And I'm with other armed people. I couldn't imagine being in the situations that you've been in. And that kind of goes back to just first responders in general, like road cops. I always say the most dangerous job in law enforcement is being a state trooper on the midnight shift in a rural area because you're by yourself and you have no idea what you're ever going to come up against. It could be you could be pulling somebody over for a speeding ticket and that situation changes and immediately escalates and you're on your own and you just never know what you're going to run into. I a lot of people talk about like all these engagements overseas, these special operations engagements. I still think the riskiest job in the world is being a road cop in a rural area because you just have no backup and you never know what you're going to get into. And that situation applies to you as fire and EMS because you're not even armed, but you get into those situations all the time because those situations, as well as I do, when you get into, say, if you're on a call to a family and there's a domestic dispute and somebody's injured, immediately, as soon as you insert yourself into that situation, who do they turn on? They turn on you, even when you're there to help people. And that
Right.
situation could get out of hand very quickly. And all you can do at that point in time is try to disengage. Well, what if you can't disengage? What if you're faced with no other option? Sometimes you can't just disengage. So I would agree with you, but it would just have to, we would have to figure out how it could be employed effectively and to keep the government out of it. That would be my biggest concern. So,
And that would be a problem because also the issue you run into is, like you mentioned, Reston Hospital Center, that truly Northern Virginia. Once you get into Fairfax, Arlington, Alexandria, Prince William, all of that, they're all so liberal that
yes,
they would never allow it.
no.
So that's the other side of the coin. That's the problem.
Yeah, you would see a lot of southern states do it, and you would see hardly any northern states do it. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I just don't know how, if it ever became a thing and only like a small portion of states actually implemented it. I don't know if it would last, if it would have any enduring effect. That's the other issue. But every time the government gets involved in something, they screw it up. So
Absolutely.
every time. That's why Social Security is almost out of money right now because the government controls it. So
Right. Well, I had listened to, I don't know, have you heard of the Firearms Nations podcast?
I have not.
So Arik Levy, I think he's down in Florida, also a law enforcement officer. He would interview police. Like he interviewed the guys from the LA shootout.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's had a lot of different law enforcement guys on and high level shooters and stuff.
Mhm.
But there was one that really impacted me. And I forget, it was like Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, somewhere through there. It was a law enforcement officer that got in a running gun battle with a dude at a traffic stop.
Mhm.
And he said they were literally they would run by each other within 3 feet shooting.
That's insane.
And he got to the point where, had he not finally been able to stop the guy, he would have been completely out of ammunition.
Wow.
And he went from that situation to switching over to 9mm so he could have a higher capacity of ammunition.
Mhm.
So between his pistol, his rifle, and maybe a shotgun, I don't remember if he included a shotgun, but he ended up having like 160 rounds of ammunition on him because he said, I will never be in that situation again where
Wow.
I'm about to run dry. And I had always wondered why people didn't carry more ammo, but that has always stuck with me because my time back in the Marines, again, we're talking
Mhm.
six at a minimum. We carried 6 30-round magazines, so at least 180 rounds. And sometimes you felt light, you
Mhm.
know? So that one really, really struck with me. And stuck with me. And I was like, I won't carry anything but 9. And I was like, that's exactly the situation that I don't want to find myself in, is, a situation where there are multiple, in my case, it would be a situation where there would be multiple people and then you have to deal with it and you don't have enough ammo to deal with multiple people.
Right.
So I'm like, you got to carry more ammo than you think you need to be
Yep.
prepared for situations. And that's the extreme, but it's also the reality.
I've always carried a lot of extra ammo in my go bag. I mean, obviously on my person, but I always had backups. If there's something would happen, I could grab my go bag, and do what I had to do and basically refit my guns and get back in the fight. But I always carried extra ammo, both domestically and overseas. It's just kind of the way I was. I mean, but there's a lot of people that don't ever think that day is gonna occur, and they just there's
It
a
may not.
and it may not, but that's what your job is, to prepare for that. And a lot of people
100%.
don't understand that. I've had these conversations with people all through my professional career, and it just doesn't sink in. And I'm like, what is your motivation for being here? And I get it. Everybody has different motivations, but I always say, how much is your life worth to you? It comes down to that simple question. And I don't know. For me, I mean, I'm going to do what I have to do to survive. That's just how I've always been. But maybe it's not. Maybe to somebody else, it's not that important. But that's me. So you know?
Yeah. I'm in that same boat. I feel the same way, or my family. You know what I mean? It's like you got to be prepared.
Every time I would go overseas on a deployment, as soon as I got on the plane, and I used to tell my wife this, and I said, look, this is not to be mean, but I would say, as soon as I got on the plane, your problems at home were now your problems. My problems, I can't worry about your problems anymore. I had a whole new set of problems I had to worry about. I'll worry about those problems when I get home. And I'll talk to my shrink when I get home if I have to. God forbid something happens overseas. But it's game face. It was like game on as soon as I got on that plane. And I was like,
All
now
right.
you, yeah.
All right. I promise this will be the last question. We're at 3 hours. I could go all night,
Oh,
but
man, this has been interesting.
um, I'm a I, man. We think a lot. We think very similar in a lot of things, and like once I was accused, not by my wife, but by another woman that I had been dating, that you look at every woman, and I said no, I look at every person, because I'm looking at how everybody is acting. And if somebody's not acting right, then there's a problem.
Hmm.
So I said, everybody, I threat assess everybody, but it's not like, oh, can I beat them up or can they beat
Right,
me
right.
up? It's like, no, are they acting out of the norm, which is a freaking problem that maybe we need to leave now before something happens. But my point here is that that requires a certain level of alertness all the time.
Yes.
So domestically, I found that there were certain places I didn't get off the boat when we went to Turkey. I was like, getting off, even though nothing happened with anybody, I was like, you know what? The risk wasn't worth getting
You're not
off
missing
there.
anything.
Exactly. So my point here is going overseas is completely different.
Mhm.
How mentally taxing was it to be at that level of alertness for the entire time you're
It's
doing
tough,
stuff?
especially the year I spent in Afghanistan, because I was always switched on, right? So I would, when I would come home on my R&Rs, that was my time to decompress. But I had these conversations all the time. So people thought, so in the State Department, it's not uncommon where a lot of people do 1 year tours overseas. But the problem is, I had people coming to me all the time. They're like, we can't live like animals. We need to go out in town and like be able to go to a restaurant. I'm like, do you want to wear an orange jumpsuit? Like, do you want to be on CNN with your head getting cut off? And I was like, don't you have R&Rs? And they're like, yeah. I was like, so do what the hell you want on your R&Rs. Like, you're over here to be professional. Like, you're over here to serve a purpose. And people just couldn't understand that reality. And I was like, this is not a place to trifle around in. You're going to find yourself, you're going to end up dead somewhere, or you're going to end up on CNN in an orange jumpsuit and they're going to be lopping your head off. So, conduct yourself accordingly. And people just don't understand that mindset. But yes, you definitely hit that point of no return at times where you're just always in that zone where you're always looking for atmospherics, you're always seeing how things develop. You basically, and once you get embedded in those countries, you kind of get a feel for how the rhythm goes. After a couple of weeks, you kind of figure out, and honestly, overseas, everything's kind of different because people just have different cultural beliefs and just have a different way of doing things. And honestly, in Afghanistan, it was just, when I first got there, it was culture shock because it was like going back into the Stone Ages. It was so different. The dichotomy of Iraq and Afghanistan were so different. And I just can't explain that to people, the difference. So once you learn those patterns of life and you learn the environmental or the environment that you're operating in, you can kind of figure out what is normal and what's not normal. But staying at that high level all the time, it's just impossible because you will burn your ass out. And then when I would come home
Yeah.
on my R&Rs, I would literally just decompress for 3 weeks and just not do anything. And then you're right back in the mix of it, but it's difficult. And that's not really something you can switch on and off when you're in a high threat area. You just can't,
No.
because it's a survival mechanism at that point in time. And that's what I'm trying to preach to people is you don't have to always be up here, but you have to know what is normal and what is not normal in your community, because you're going to start seeing things as we progress, and you need to learn what is different and what is not. And you need to be able to see something and be like, hey, I think it's time for us to leave. Like, let's go. Like, let's stick to our plan and let's leave. Let's not figure out what this is. Let's just leave. This doesn't look right. And that's what I'm really trying to preach to people in my writings on Substack. And I hope it's starting to hit home with people, and people are starting to see that. So I'm trying to take all of my experiences overseas and make them applicable to here domestically, because we're starting to see a lot of the things that happened overseas here in the US, and you're going to start seeing more of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes.
Well, Ryan, we have talked a wide range of topics today.
This was
Was there
awesome.
anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to touch on before we go?
I think we touched on pretty much everything that we wanted to talk about today. I think this was an awesome experience, man. And I just really appreciate you having me on. And like I said, I'm extremely humbled to be here. And you've had some phenomenal guests before. I've listened to your podcast on and off before over the years. And there's been a lot of car rides back and forth to DC or wherever I've had your podcast on and just listening to some of your guests. So I just feel honored to be here, man. I really appreciate you having me on. It was awesome, man.
Well, just be careful on those long rides. I've been told my voice puts people to sleep. So,
No, man. Somebody's talking about shooting, I can listen intently for hours, man. I can geek out over this topic. So yeah.
all right. Well, thanks for coming on. And at some point, we're going to have an off the record conversation about some stuff because,
No, that's perfectly fine.
yeah, I think that would get very interesting.
No, man. Like I said, I'm glad I'm here, and it was really nice to meet you. And I'm glad that we think we're very like-minded people. So we need to like-minded people need to stick together to these days, because there's not many of us left. We're a dying breed. We're dinosaurs, man. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, hey, thanks so much, David.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, buddy.